Apologies for the lateness of this episode, you owe me a spank on the fanny. The American fanny, not the British kind. Once again, this episode of the Kooks, Cranks, and Iconoclasts podcast deals with some pretty effed up conceptual material. Consider yourself forewarned.
Page pulled up, and we've been recording for a good 14. Just stop laughing at me. What is the Am I saying boo or moo?
Hey everybody, this is the Kooks, Cranks, and Iconoclasts podcast. I'm Mike.
I'm Matt.
And today, continuing our month-long Halloween upside your head fantabulous mystery meat tour, we've got another real-life monster who has inspired other fictional monsters that I'm sure you're familiar with. Today, our subject is a Mr. Johan Conrad Dippel, the inspiration behind Dr. Victor Frankenstein.
That's Frankenstein.
Yes.
And man, I want to say off the top that this research has led me into some weird fucking territories. I've been looking forward to this episode actually for a while because of the weird shit that I've found. It just sprouts off into so many obscure fucking corners. But I don't know. First of all, what's happened to you in the last week?
Well, I went to the square opening down here at our Fairburg, and I asked people a couple of questions, like, hey, we got the solar eclipse and Leanne Rimes is playing. Is it the end of days? A lot of people had some mixed feelings about that.
I think the Plague of Locusts is next.
Yeah. I thought, I don't even know, the guy from Cambodia, head of the
Pol Pot?
Moulin Rouge. Yeah.
Quite a dancer, that Pol Pot.
Yeah. No, other than that, man, it's been, do you remember the alarm that went off, the EAS thing?
The presidential
alert.
New World Order alarm?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So apparently an unintended effect of that was, it outed quite a few Mennonites and modern day Amish. Yeah.
Not the kids, right? Well, they're on Rumspringa. I think they're allowed to have that shit.
Yeah, they're allowed, but these guys were living there.
Elders.
Yeah. So one of them, I forgot who wrote the news article, and hopefully Cheryl will correct me. One of the guys said that he was actually getting reprimanded, and his hearing for his shunning was happening when the alarm went off, and they're like, "Get the fuck out!" And they're like, "Wow, I thought you guys were a lot nicer than that." But
those, I almost said Mormons. Those Amish, man, they cut right to the chase.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I can imagine, like, ye old Sprint has fucked me once again, molasses.
They're not even around anymore.
Sprint?
Yeah, they're gone. They got eaten by another. I think they got ate by a
bigger
T-Mobile.
fish.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah.
Which seems like an antitrust case to me, but who am I?
I mean, I know it, like in the mid 2000s and the aughts back then, we had 6 main media companies. I'm sure that's dwindled quite a bit. It's probably down to 4, maybe 3 now. If you don't count things like Spotify, thanks guys, or other weird, desovereignized forms of media. But as far as like where every
the weird thing is
Joe Couch Diaper is getting their fucking news and opinions.
What's really weird is ABC and Fox are owned by the same company.
That's right. That's
weird. So technically, it's CBS, NBC, Disney.
God damn.
And then Viacom owns CBS and
I got a nasty letter from Viacom one time.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're threatening to sue my ass.
Good thing
over Reno 911.
That's no good.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think it was more an intimidation tactic than anything else.
The days of downloading stuff illegally on the internet, man, it's just they figured it out. You just stream it,
Yeah.
and people will.
Or you get a VPN. I mean, it's the whole. What's that shitty old Marky Mark movie where he played a hitman? It was before he was super famous.
It's called The Hitman.
Is it?
Yeah.
The Big Hit.
Yeah.
And
There's
Lou
like the
Diamond.
whole-
Lou Diamond Phillips was in that one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Diamond Dog.
Yeah, go back and watch it. It's great.
Yeah. There's a whole bit where he's like, "Well, what they don't know is we have a trace buster." And he's like, "But what if they have a trace buster buster?"
Yo, that's why I got this Trace Buster.
That's exactly how this shit works now.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, it also seems to be how politics work and media
And sibling
movements.
It's all who's got who can outdo the other.
I don't know. I wouldn't say sibling fights, at least. I don't know. I can't remember any that we've had that adhere to that formula. Yeah. Oh, by the way, hey, big ups to our sister for supporting us on platform.
Yeah. She'll be in town.
Yeah, I've been meaning to say that out loud on the radio in Radio Land for a minute here. I just keep getting diarrhea and forgetting things. So here's my thing for the week. I've done nothing but fucking research pretty much, or edit for the last week. But as I said, this research took me to some weird fucking places. And I found, okay, so Frankenstein, right? Artificial life form.
Yeah.
Well, I found this shit about, where is it? There was this electrician in 1834 named Andrew Cross. And he was doing these experiments where he just took like a rock, like a regular rock, and put it in like a water. He put it in water or like a saline solution or something, and he ran electrical current through it. And then he let it sit forever, hermetically sealed or whatever, for like 18 to 36 days. And he started noticing these little white like bump growths on it. And the more he like kept an eye on these weird bump growth things, he started noticing they were sprouting little legs and antennae and shit.
Tendril.
Yeah. So he basically like made artificial bugs by electrocuting a rock and it's exactly like the Genesis tub Simpsons episode with
Yeah.
the tooth, which I didn't know. Apparently this is based on a true story. But yeah, he ended up creating these bugs, which they were dubbed Acarus electricus. And this is a real thing. You can look it up. He ended up accidentally talking about it out loud in like a restaurant to a friend.
Oops.
Yeah, and well, he didn't accidentally talk about it. He was talking about it on purpose, but he was accidentally overheard by a journalist who wrote it out into a fucking newspaper. And then all of a sudden, his home/laboratory is being confronted by various angry mobs who are like, "He is against our religion," and like they basically gathered with torches and pitchforks and
Yeah.
were like,
You know, I think the happiest day of that shop owner's life is when he sells out of pitchforks and torches. You know?
I don't know. I bet that same shop owner that runs the torches and pitchforks store probably goes to like political rallies and sneaks up into the back of the crowd and just goes, I don't know, I don't want to say a racial epithet, but he just like, and like in the background and sets shit off and like goes back to the store and is like, all right, time to wait.
Plus, I heard he said you guys look like dorks. What? Fuck him. He looks like a dork.
He said you all smell like Updog.
And they're even more upset that they fell for it.
Yeah. He was like, hey, what's that on your shirt? And he looked down and he goes, hit him with the finger.
That
up
hurt,
the nose.
Mike.
Yeah. But yeah, fucking, it's a weird story, man. Like, and that's just the tip of the iceberg of some of the strange shit I found. I also, I almost instantly regretted it, but because this is has to do with medicine to a degree as well, and surgery and anatomy specifically, I looked at a picture book of medical oddities and deformities.
Oh, God.
And I really wish I hadn't, because there's some shit in there that I can't. I'll never unsee.
Yeah.
Things you can't unsee.
It's the most magical and disturbing piece of equipment you'll ever own.
Ugh.
Your body.
There's another, and I found another famous picture of a dude. I can't remember his name. It's like Ebenezer or something. So you know it's good. He he did something. I know they used to use like radium paint to like paint the minute and second hands on watches and shit.
Yeah.
And that's why all those radium women, like their jaws fell off and shit.
Yep.
Well, that's exactly what happened to this guy, except he like directly applied radium to a tooth or something, and his whole fucking bottom jaw fell off.
Gross.
And he survived for quite a while afterwards. There's like a really famous picture of him that I'm sure you can find on the internet. I wish I remembered his last name, but also,
Yeah. He can't do that.
yeah. It's just your asshole.
Why? Everything just keeps getting stranger and stranger. I don't even know anymore, man. I'm trying. We got our technical difficulties fixed, so
Yeah. It's all good. I mean, as long as we jump back in and our volume levels are the same and fine, I can edit out whatever.
So, did you know that Johan Conrad Dippel, also spelled Johan Conrad Dippel, because it's with a C, not a K, was born August 10th, 1673, died April 25th, 1734. There was a riot on the streets, probably more. No, his whole life is like he was born in that castle at Frankenstein Castle, and then he also
most of his life growing up there.
Yeah, and then
apparently while he was growing up there, also it was seconding as like a hospital / refuge for Napoleonic war soldiers.
Yeah, and
so he grew up around deformed and amputee soldiers.
Yeah, it's
his whole life.
And it was a medical school.
Yeah.
So like,
that's probably a good explanation as to the fucking life trajectory this guy took.
As it goes, you know, when you're out there milling about in the wild, you're probably not going to see a whole lot of people missing limbs, right? Maybe here and there, you know?
I mean, back then, I bet it was probably somewhat more common than it is today.
So, like, after World War II.
How'd you lose your leg? Ants.
Yeah.
Setting some gum.
After World War II, all you know, they stopped fighting and stuff. And do you remember Coach Cantrell from?
Yeah, big tall
German dude.
I don't remember German, but
he yelled, "Hey, slap dick!"
Yeah.
So he grew up in Germany in the 50s, and he said, man, they used to like get up and go on the bus and go wherever they had to go with his mom, and everybody was missing limbs, and he's like,
Strudelstrassen.
It's just normal.
Yeah,
just all the time. Just like I thought it was weird that I thought at some point I would lose one of mine. It's just a normal thing that happens. And then he comes to America, and like everybody has all their digits. Whoa!
Is this a country of supermodels?
Fat supermodels?
That'd be weird. And not everyone was quite as fat around that time, I'm sure.
It's before the microwave dinner.
Yeah, I can picture like just weird dancing parades of phantom limbs, like up and down the street. Like hands and arms is fucking beep boop up beep boop up, just marching up and down. I forget exactly how Dippel is related to the actual Frankenstein family, like the real life, literal Frankenstein dynasty or lineage that the castle is named after. But he is like a distant relative of some sort. But I saw some stuff on the Frankenstein family, the real one. Apparently, they had a curse placed on them because at some point back in their olden times, during the Holy Roman Empire over Germany, they split up into Protestant and Catholic. So, like, half the family was cursed by the Catholics, oddly enough, which is
a plague. Plague upon your houses.
They were fucking around with magic and shit.
Yeah.
But, eventually that side of the family died out. The fucking Frankensteins like spread all over Europe, and then now most of them apparently are alive today in places like Michigan and Ohio. So yeah,
the Midwest.
Yeah, the Midwest of America.
Where better to hide them all? So Dippel, Bo Bippel, lived in Frankensteiner Castle there, and he studied theology, philosophy, and alchemy. And he also had some pretty radical ideas on religion, and that pissed off a ton of people too, because he used to be just okay at being Catholic. And, you know, like, man, Protestantism, this is the way to go.
Well, his dad was a Lutheran.
Yeah, the original breakoff was the Lutherans.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And then the Protestant Reformation was, if Lutheranism is Catholic light, then Protestantism is non-alcoholic.
Zero.
Yeah.
That's probably Puritanism, but light.
Well, Puritanism is just, God, awful.
We don't drink anything.
We don't like the English because they're too plain, and we don't like the Dutch because they're too free-minded. We're Puritans.
We're the Oh, I mean, this is about to launch into a Puritan musical number. Yeah, actually, the permissiveness and open-mindedness of, did you say Denmark? Was it? The Dutch, I mean.
Oh, yeah, the Dutch.
Yeah, because...
The Dutch Republic.
Yeah, he ends up spending some time there later in life, as we'll see. Dippel does. Dippel do. Dippity do. It's what you find on your dippity first thing in the morning.
Do.
Ha ha! Yes!
You are correct, sir. Yes!
If anyone under the age of 40 doesn't know that that's Johnny Carson. Fucking Ed McMahon. Anyways.
So, got into a little hot water. He wanted to publish a paper, or an essay, quote, "The Scourging Papacy of the Protestants," on the Offenbach press. Offenbach.
Offenbach?
Yeah, they said no. This is too provocative.
The scourge of
the scourging papacy of the Protestants.
I don't even know what that means. That's confusing.
I agree.
So is he saying that the Protestants have a scourging papacy, or that the papacy is scourging the Protestants? I would assume the second one would be.
I believe it's a what do you call it? A referendum on the progression of the movement.
Ah, okay. Okay. Yeah. It's too much like Catholicism, maybe. Something like that.
Maybe.
Okay.
I mean, of the 95 demands Martin Luther made, 5 got left out.
Yeah, that's also weird that this a lot of this kind of occurs pretty closely to some of the shit we talked about last episode. Germany was just a fucking weird, disgusting, fucked up.
The thing
back
that throws,
in those days.
The thing that throws me off is HRE at one point pretty fucking progressive.
Oh yeah.
But with their technology and then people don't like the way it's going. I mean, like even the Dutch Republic invented the
oven,
the microscope, and the oven. Yes,
the Dutch oven.
Yes. It's the most effective way to trap heat. The reason they invented the microscope, which wasn't even like intended to be in a platform it was, right? Like that's an adaptation. They originally made that because they thought the Egyptians were fucking them on 400 thread count. So they made this lens.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh, hey, you know what? This could be used for something else. And then I believe I've already stated this in another episode. The first thing they did was study, you guessed it, spooge.
He's alive!
And they're like, hey, it's alive.
Actually, spooge is going to come up a lot in this episode. More than I thought it would.
Ectoplasm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Ectoplasm.
Yeah.
Why
are you guys covered in ectoplasm?
Get that black light out of here. Yeah, dude. I'm sure that we already know that most technological innovations revolve around sex to some degree, at least in our modern era. But I'm almost certain a equally, if not closely large portion of technological innovations were made solely out of the idea of, I know they're fucking us somehow, we gotta figure out a way.
Yep.
So
it's weird. It's the
we're gonna fuck them before they can fuck us.
The dual-sided part of us versus them, the tribal mentality.
Yeah.
That's made a lot of nice innovations. In fact, it's part of that function actually serves to create monsters in your mind with the us versus them mentality. Because
the monsters of reason.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, like that's one of the Ruby Ridge, it's a fucked up situation. I mean, obviously, I'm not saying like the fucking guy. I mean, he was a Nazi and a fucking white supremacist, but didn't deserve to have the FBI kill his family. But anyways, the whole situation was fucked up because, It's exactly like, it's a perfect example because the FBI is like, this guy's a Nazi white supremacist. We know that, but he's also a terrorist, and he's selling arms, which they, more or less confirm. That's what the FBI do, is when they try to trap people, I guess. But then at the same time, he's like, it's the Zionist occupied government coming to get me. So they both thought that each side were monsters, basically, coming to get each other. And I mean, once you killed the fucking kid, obviously, and the dog, but I don't know. It's just, such a...
What a horrible... The 90s, as far as domestic policy is concerned.
And domestic terrorism, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Well, I won't say quote unquote. It was a fucking...
Terrible.
Actuality, yes.
Fucking terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not trying to blame a certain President Bush or anything, but great foreign policy, terrible domestic policy.
Yeah, I remember his foreign policy, throwing up all over the fucking Chinese guy.
Yeah.
Or was it Japanese?
Japanese.
Okay.
The Prime Minister of Japan.
That's right.
Anyways, we're so off topic.
Yeah.
Anyways.
And I was about to launch into fucking George Bush Sr. fighting cannibals on an island when he was a baby.
Yeah, we should probably bring that up again at some point.
Yeah, we'll come back to it in a future date.
So,
but yes, tribalism, fucking Germany is shattered and like broke into fiefdoms and shires and bishoprics, I believe they're called, etc. Under the Holy Roman.
Yeah. The borders, Habsburgs.
They're Spanish, right?
One side of the family is
okay.
It's split off. So Dippel is known for quite a bit besides the basis of Frankensteiner. He had a very adventurous life, getting into lots of trouble because he had problems managing his money, from gambling or drinking or maybe even whoremongering.
I don't know that.
Well, maybe. There's a lot of stuff they leave out at the eulogy, Mike.
I don't know. I mean, I don't think he was a big drinker necessarily, or a frequenter of sex workers, by the way, Matt. Sex workers.
Whoremongering makes it sound like there's like a place down by the river you gotta go pull it out of
That's something a pirate does.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
You gotta set a trap, fucking pull it out of the river.
I can run a trot line, I can skin a buck. Yeah, but he was bad with his money. I know that because he was like, from what I read and saw, this dude, he seems exactly like the type of dude who has like 5 scams going at once, basically, and he's trying to like juggle shit and losing track of who he's bullshitting about what, because I don't know if he's fully into it by the point we're at, but when you become a quote unquote alchemist back in those days and start going around saying shit like you can make gold out of nothing, you're also the equivalent of a con man, basically. So, but people who were in high positions of power, nobility and landowners and shit all over the place, were constantly hiring quote unquote alchemists to try and fill their coffers, etc.
And he was widely considered to be a great bullshit artist, because the amount of people called him cultish and opportunistic, and he would dazzle them with details and baffle them with bullshit.
Yeah.
And at one point, he actually was in prison for heresy, where he served a 7-year sentence for just talking fucking nonsense and trash.
He liked to argue a lot. He's one of those people who always thought he was right. He did like to argue a lot, and he thought he was the smartest guy in the room, basically.
Yeah. Well, you know what Mark Cuban says?
What?
If you can't find the sucker in the room, it's you.
Yeah, that's true. Mark Cuban.
Yeah.
Pulled pork sandwich man.
He created, not Mark Cuban, but Dippel created an animal oil known as Dippel's oil, which was supposed to be the equivalent of the alchemist's dream of the elixir of life.
Yeah.
And he tried to broker that.
Thought it would be.
Yeah, and basically it's distilled bone.
Yeah,
and a couple of other sexy ingredients.
He melted down bone and like some iron.
He actually tried to use this formula at one point to try to buy Frankenstein's castle, or Castle Frankenstein. He tried to sell this bullshit Lorenzo's oil to
fucking snake oil, all shit.
And it didn't work out.
Well, it did apparently have some healing properties, But at the same time, it's like disgusting melted animal in a fucking vial. And they said it was like a brown liquid that smelled like shit, and you had to drink it.
Ugh.
But apparently it had like weird stimulant properties or whatever, and worked on certain sicknesses.
Well,
Oh, here it is. Let's see.
yeah.
Dippel's oil, considered a universal panacea, meaning cure or for medicine for what ails you, used in medical practices for curing various diseases. Apparently, when taken internally, it acts as an antispasmodic, stimulates the nervous system. Another major discovery associated with Dippel's time in Berlin. Oh, wait, no. We'll get to that.
Yeah. So this also had its benefits in helping with a few other industrial goods. So it's healthy.
Yeah.
He had actually mixed potassium carbonate with it, and it would produce red dyes, or it was supposed to produce a red dye, and it actually ended up creating a blue pigment, otherwise known as Prussian blue, which was ultimately used in clothing for uniforms and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Made that unique blue color that you see in all the video games.
That's the one I think I have the formula for. Let's see. By heating bones, dried blood, hair, and other unnamed ingredients to high heat, and mixing the product with scrap iron and quote-unquote crude potash. I don't even know what the fuck that is. Is that like goulash?
It's potash. It's like
Oh, I thought it was potash.
either or. It's
who fucking says that word out loud?
it's a lot of it's they use it as a fertilizer now.
Okay.
I think it's real high in potassium.
All other countries.
Yeah, it's number one exporter.
Dippel obtained a chemical called potassium ferrocyanide, and when mixed with air, took on a specific blue hue. Stop crying. Called Prussian blue, aka Berlin blue. This with this discovery made public in 1724 after his death. Oddly enough, further experiment with the accidental discovery by a German chemist named Scheele produced another solution by diluting Dippel's chemical with sulfuric acid, creating hydrocyanic or prussic acid, which is one of the most potent poisons ever, and if even taken in small doses, causes instant paralysis of the heart and spinal cord.
Jesus.
Yeah. Apparently, prussic acid is one of the most effective methods of suicide.
Yeah. I don't know if we're allowed to say that on the air
We are.
anymore. Okay. You checked it.
Yeah. FAA don't give a fuck.
No,
FCC.
Not the FCC.
WFAA don't give a shit.
Yeah, they don't care.
Um,
Spotify may though.
No, but audience, obviously, disclaimer: don't go around trying to make prussic acid cyanide to fucking injure life.
The Kooks, Cranks, and Iconoclast podcast does not endorse the use of ancient Prussian self-terminating liquids devices.
Let's make a moratorium on that word.
Yeah.
And from now on, anytime we have to say that word, just to be sure, let's call it quantum immortality.
Okay. He QM'd himself.
He quantum QI.
Oh, QI. Oh yeah, immortality.
He quantum immortality himself.
So he's making all kinds of headway in the chemistry or alchemy way.
Both actually, I think.
Yeah. And he had a little fascination for anatomy, and not just the normal run of the mill fascination that we all have for anatomy. You know?
You sneak a look here and there.
Yeah, you know.
This guy was sneaking more than looks.
Yeah.
Apparently, supposedly, allegedly.
Alleged. So he also practiced in anatomy because when you grow up around the time of the great
Napoleonic Wars.
He's before then. He made it through.
Oh, what was the war? Okay, because
he made it through the War of Secession.
So that's what all the soldiers with the amputations and disfigurements. That was the war they fought in.
So basically,
I thought that was the Napoleonic War. I guess I was.
Yeah, I mean, like the mini ball did a lot of that, but this is before that. So back in like this, I think it's 1700. right at 1700. They had the secession crisis, or succession crisis, excuse me. And Brian Cox was king of France, right?
I see what you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyways,
I was about to say the original Hannibal Lecter.
So the
I believe that when me shit turns purple and smells of rainbow sherbet. Napoleon. Dynamite.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, all right. And about, I think it was 1700, the king of Spain had some issues, right? He didn't have a male heir, and they had made an agreement that if he didn't have an heir, that the Habsburgs, if he didn't have an heir, he was going to have to make an agreement, right? So the French kind of pushed it and like, well, we want to make my grandson, Louis the whatever, king of Spain.
Louis the monkey.
But that would make Spain the realm of France and Spain, which would make them a fucking superpower.
Yeah.
Right? And the alternative was you can let a Habsburg have it and there will be peace. And so they said, oh, no, we're going to double the size of France. Fuck you! And,
Fromage.
yeah.
Jacques.
Yeah, just like that. And so Austria, the Netherlands, England, and I want to say maybe Portugal, they all were like, hey, we're going to war with France and Spain if Spain doesn't chill the fuck out. And the war was huge. And like Prussia got involved, and they just kicked the shit out of France. And they're like, Habsburg installation of government, meow.
And this was in the 1700s?
Yeah, it was like 1700 to 1702.
So this is right before he was born.
This is when he's already like.
Oh no, I was talking about the war like before he was born. Like, why would there be deformed and amputee soldiers? Like, what war would that be? Because I thought that was a Napoleonic War.
No,
Okay.
he was born in 1673. So Napoleon didn't happen until late 1700s.
Okay. Well, wasn't there like 5 or 6 fucking Napoleons though?
Yeah, but I mean, Bonaparte didn't take power until
He was the first one that was a shithead.
All he had to do was fire one shot from a cannon.
An awesome shithead.
And then there you go. He was Emperor of France, which
You know,
apparently doesn't amount to shit.
I saw him in a mall one time.
That's cool.
He was eating ice cream. He loved it.
I bet. was Socrates there with him?
Yeah. Then we played Risk.
And now, like during that war, he was old enough he would have been like in his 40s, so he would have seen like a ton of corpses. But I mean, even with all the general shitheadery, chicanery, going on around
chicanery,
yeah. Even with all that going, I mean, like, man, there was all kinds of conflicts all the time, man. The fucking Ottomans invaded.
Mugwumpery.
Yeah. Skullduggery.
Yeah. I love that word.
Yes, it's a good one. I heard it the other day. Thanks for saying it out loud, Chris. Not you, Chris. The other Chris. Anyways,
No.
You would have seen a lot of terrible shit because the rifle was becoming more efficient.
Okay.
Rifling was becoming a thing.
Yeah.
And all that. And by the time, I mean, they were actually getting away from pikemen and more to the kind of line infantry fighting that you
Weren't
see.
pikemen like the dudes who had the long sticks?
Yeah.
With the, pike at the end?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I knew the answer to that.
And they'd get into formation and they'd stab you.
That's another copyrighted superhero, Pike Man. The guy with a big, long, pointy stick. Justice League Reserves.
What? Suppose he comes at you with a pointed stick. What?
It's got poo on the end.
No one's gonna fucking do that.
Yeah, there were allegations, we'll say. I think this was when, not long after he sort of got out of college, because that's when he was like being a real bastard and was before he went to jail for, being a dick and fucking trying to rile people up. And he was writing all these things as like, he used this pen name, Christian Democritus, named after the 5th century pseudonym of a big Greek philosopher, often labeled the father of Epicureanism, and also called the laughing philosopher. He also created atomic theory. So he like took that name as a pen name or whatever, and was trying to write all those pamphlets, because that's what you had to do back then, if you wanted to let people know about your crazy horse shit. And
didn't have the nerd back then. You had to hand out.
Oh, and also, or our timeline might skip around a little on this, folks. But
sorry, everybody.
It's all stuff that happened in his life. So it's all to illustrate kind of the overall folkloric nature of this man's life. I can't remember if it was when he was a student or when he was teaching college, but that was when the allegations started floating around that he had been grave robbing
and doing stuff at the aquarium.
Yeah, those sick freaks. And
Just for reference, people used to get paid a lot of money to go out there and dig up a corpse and bring it back for anatomical study.
For non-sexual purposes.
Yes, for non-sexual.
God, this morning I was eating breakfast and watching like Travel Channel or something, and you know who Carl Tanzler is?
No.
We may cover him one day.
Okay.
He's a X-ray technician who lived in the Florida Keys, and
yeah. He did all that stuff to that lady.
Yeah,
allegedly.
It's good breakfast entertainment.
God.
Yes, allegedly, supposedly.
Yes. You don't understand.
Carl Tanzler, reanimator.
Who is
Conrad Dippel, reanimator.
Who is he dating in there? Just dancing and he was dancing with a corpse. Not Dippel, but like, other guy.
I seen the pictures of what he dressed that lady up like.
Yeah.
And I believe if you remember, like a few years back, there was a dude in Russia who pretty much did the same thing, except with the bodies of fucking children that he stole from graveyard. And supposedly, allegedly, nothing freaky weird. I mean, freakier than hanging out with dead bodies dressed up like dolls in your room, thrown around all over the place. Supposedly nothing untoward, quote unquote, happened. He just wanted to like have friends. And
well, he's going about it all wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Join a fucking club,
yeah,
or something, and not a grave digging club.
Yeah.
Jesus fucking Christ!
But yeah, I remember like the police video when they went into his.
I saw it too. I'm pretty sure it's not Disturbion, but Shrouded Hand had a video on him.
Yeah. Is it Disturbion? I thought it was Disturban.
Disturban? I don't know.
I haven't watched it in a while.
I put him on the
cover.
feed.
A lot of people getting doused in acid.
Yeah, he just gave a lady $8,200 that survived being acid tossed in the face.
Oh, he raised money for her?
Huh?
Oh, that's fucking awesome. I didn't know he did that.
Yeah.
Good on you.
He just wired her 82 hundo. It's like, here you go.
Shit. And I know he's covered a couple people. Anyway.
Way to go, man.
Yeah. Good for you, Disturbing.
The studio audience, thanks for the fact. I'm pretty sure they have another one here for that, but I don't know.
It's fine.
Yeah.
we're drifting back and forth.
Back to the show.
Last time. So yeah, there were tales of him allegedly robbing graves. This was also around the time that I believe he started for the very first time. That's when he started looking into alchemy. Dude, also listen to this. This dude was such a bastard when he was in college that his doctoral thesis or dissertation or whatever, it was called On Nothing. And it was about how his teachers didn't teach him shit.
Nice.
Oh, you can tell he was a fucking little shit from the get-go.
Fucking full of himself.
Yeah. Oh, and also he was known, let's see, he often shocked his colleagues by questioning the authority of his instructor's scientific and theological quote-unquote truths. Rejected by his peers, he soon left Germany. He ended up at the Imperial University of Strasbourg, where one of his influences was the alchemist Paracelsus, who I believe we talked about before too. Paracelsus,
inventor of carbonated water.
No. Oh. He was one of the early. He was also a German alchemist, probably around like 1500s, I think. But he was the guy. Paracelsus was his pen name, but his real name was like Leonidas Theophrastus Bombastus. Like he had the long,
Mr. Bombastic,
like really long name, and he wrote all these alchemical treatises about elementals and fucking sylphs and gnomes and salamanders and shit like that, and a subject we'll be retouching on later, the homunculus. But I digress. Oh, yeah, Dippel was also known for, about the same time he was getting into alchemy, was also fucking around with divination, prophecy, being a visionary. Some of his students were like, he's got psychic powers and shit. that probably didn't help being surrounded by religious, dogmatic types.
Yeah,
Considering it's fucking
around the
occultism.
time of the grave robbing allegations and experimenting on cadavers, dropping salt on them and seeing if they dance. He was accused of.
Do you guys
keeping-
sell frog legs?
They do sell frog legs.
Okay.
And they do have a neurological reaction when you drop salt on them.
Ugh,
But that's all right. They're not my legs.
Yeah.
He was also accused of keeping company with the devil. So
Yeah, that comes up.
it's like every room we walked in, they were just playing The Weight, by the band.
The Weight?
Yeah,
By the band?
yeah,
The band?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
The band is
Okay.
the name of yeah,
I was waiting for something more to that, and I was like, oh, yeah, okay, The band.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you had to do much to get accused of trafficking with Satan back in those days. Like, if somebody sneezed and you didn't say, whatever the fuck.
Gesundheit?
Yeah, you're liable to get fucking clapped in irons and
Yeah.
thrown in ye old shite hole.
He was they say a lot. He
Don't they?
they had perpetuated rumors that he had made a deal with the devil in exchange for secret knowledge, like the ability to solve Pythagorean's theorem and other shit, and then had a reputation as a
Excuse
dark
me,
sorcerer.
Satan. I'd like to exchange my soul for the ability to do math problems. That's the fucking stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard. I hope that they didn't fucking think that's what it was.
Oh man.
Yeah, no, it didn't take a lot to fucking get,
So because of his reputation as a dark sorcerer and secret knowledge, it actually worked to his benefit.
Only around like poor or super religious
Well, see,
people.
but it still worked its way into the manners and all that stuff. So guys got, he's got a reputation with aristocracy too, because they're like,
Yeah.
I hear tell that you have secret information.
Yeah.
I would gladly pay you today for a hamburger on Tuesday. And
Can you alchemy up a hamburger?
yeah, what is this philosopher's stone I hear so much about? I hear there's a lot of urine involved, and my house has quite a few pea pots in it, and I was just curious if you could whip me up one, just quickly.
Whip it up.
Yeah, and then the elixir of life, allegedly, which also contains urine,
Yeah.
amongst other bodily fluids that could be used.
Yeah, it's weird. Alchemy can be traced back to like the Middle East and Egypt, like where it kind of first came around before Western culture adopted it. But aside from that, also in China, going way back, they also have their own version of alchemy, but it's done like inside the body.
But it's called science. Oh,
Well,
sorry.
I mean, it plays into traditional medicine and stuff now. So technically, if it didn't do something worth a shit, it wouldn't be around still. So it must have some scientific merit to it to a degree. But yeah, there are, as we said, will come up later on in this. So there are, the usage of bodily fluids and what could also be called what we would today probably refer to as biopharmaceutical harvesting. Yeah, delicious.
So, because of these rumors and his, for lack of a better term, very sophisticated panhandling, he actually got himself banned from 2 countries. That's 2 more countries than I've been banned from.
Yeah,
He got banned from Russia
One-man band.
and Sweden. Way to go, Sweden, for kicking him
Russia
out.
and Sweden?
Yeah,
Huh.
and they're like, yeah, no, you can't come in here no more.
While in hiding during, dodging the allegations of grave robbery, he decided to sort of amp up his serious study of alchemy, and he was apparently later able to interest someone called the Landgrave of Hesse, which I assume is a sort of like title of some kind, like a Burgermeister, whatever that is, or a cake boss.
Hesse was a state in the
Okay.
HRE.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, the Landgrave of Hesse was in his nefarious pursuits, as Count Ernst Ludwig of Hesse was a shitty prince that entertained delusions of transforming his court into something bigger with much fruitier and frillier colors, into something bigger and fancier. But in this process had all but bankrupted and deeply indebted his treasury reserves. So he decided to use alchemy to recoup his losses, which was fashionable at the time. by hiring a handful of alchemists to make gold out of piss and other various secret ingredients in laboratories which were established and operated 24/7. So basically this dude had like the old-timey equivalent of online multi-massive online role-playing game gold farms set to fucking servers in, I don't know, North Korea or some shit. Jesus. Sorry, I just was reading some Charles Strauss. So yeah, they set up these, these weird little labs to try to come up with gold, and basically they turned around and they offered the Landgrave several pretty piss poor fucking excuses for why they couldn't do it. Yeah, like saying, the silver and the copper and the quicksilver were not pure enough. Or what was another one?
Isn't it ironic that if they actually made the gold, it would devalue gold, so it wouldn't really,
Well, yeah, if everybody was doing it.
Yeah,
but see, apparently with alchemy also, there's a whole... Because if you are able to find the way to make gold, then you've discovered the big secret, basically. And there are apparently rules and stipulations that come with it. Because it's not just a chemical thing, there's a spiritual element to it too. So apparently there's rules that, like, if the alchemist personally tries to profit from their own gold making, then something bad will happen, which is supposedly kind of what happens later on in this story as well.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, there are weird, stipulations and fucking, it's magical, so you got to shake the stick and do the thing and make the cuckoo noise and whatever.
What's crazy is
bippity boppity boo.
They're like, we think lead may be pretty close to being like a source for gold, and they weren't wrong because it's like one atomic number off from gold. Yeah.
Hey man, alchemy fucking ended up, it gave us chemistry.
It did.
It gave us fucking the periodic elements and shit. Or the table, at least, and stuff like that. Chemistry and, to a degree, physics. Alchemy also has all these, like... It's a psychological or psycho-spiritual or mystical process as well. So you have all these different... For every action that has a equal or opposite reaction, when you're mixing things like quicksilver with acid or whatever to try and, like, fucking experiment and get a new thing or whatever.
Yeah.
Basically, there's a corresponding... psychological / spiritual inner process that's supposed to occur, and you're supposed to like obtain a certain sort of occult knowledge as well in correspondence with it. So every kind of chemical formulae has the corresponding revelation of secret knowledge of sorts, and a lot of it is supposedly coded in, like, if you just look at like old alchemy fucking books and things like that, there's all kinds of crazy artwork because it's all very, like, coded in symbolism and imagery.
Oh, good.
So it's, like, it's cool to look at. It, like, makes for, fucking interesting art. But, it's highly, highly, highly symbolic. But that same alchemical symbolism has been used in, like, art and culture. You see it everywhere today. Yeah. You just don't realize you're looking at it.
But I think the phrase secret knowledge is the trigger man, and that's the smoking gun, because I mean, technically anything you don't know before you know it, wouldn't that constitute secret knowledge because it's unknown and it has to be obtained through
not necessarily
measures?
I mean, I know quantum physics is a thing, but I don't know shit about it, and I don't know how to formulate expressions of it in my mind.
I mean, like now, like, secret knowledge would be like classified documents.
7 herbs and spices.
11 herbs and spices.
Oh, holy shit.
Yeah.
That's way more than I thought.
Yeah.
It was.
But, it is, you're right, it is secret knowledge. Yeah. Only the people that work for the colonel know about that.
Mm-hmm.
And even they are like, it comes in prepackaged stuff sometimes. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Colonel got pretty upset about that at one point in his life.
Yeah.
He started in his older age going to his many locations, and people were like, okay, this is weird. There's a guy dressed like Colonel Sanders here in our...
But I am Colonel Sanders.
KFC. Well, it was Colonel Sanders. And he would buy food, and he'd sit off in a corner and start eating, and be like, this tastes like shit! And just start throwing food around. because he was pissed at the company. They basically pulled the whole Michael Keaton. What was that Michael Keaton McDonald's commercial?
Yeah.
The
movie.
The founder.
Yeah.
It's like, we can make even shittier, cheaper milkshakes. It's like it's the same thing.
Yeah. And then Dave Thomas used to be his right-hand man.
Really?
Yeah. And Dave Thomas is like, hey, Colonel, look, man, sorry to sound like Elvis when I say this, but look, this whole arrangement will be giving you 50% of everything they got to work out, okay? So he boogied out and made Wendy's and named it after his daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was an orphan. Was he owned by Colonel Sanders?
I don't know.
Huh.
It makes sense.
Yeah. You know, Colonel Sanders also...
I miss Dave Thomas. I thought that guy was cool.
Yeah, he seemed like a good guy.
Way to go, Dave Thomas.
It's also weird. They like kind of tried to make Wendy like more grown up and hotter like not too long ago. It was just weird. I don't know. Anyways, Colonel Sanders, fucking when he first started his company, him and an employee, one of his employees got shot because when he first started his company and it was in Kentucky still, he had like a rival who was like, "I'm gonna get you, Sanders," and he was also a chicken man.
Weird.
And they had like
Colonel.
Yeah.
Colonel.
And he's not even like a war colonel. It's just a weird like southern affectation. It's like a...
When I was a kid, I for real thought he was a Civil War veteran.
Also, one last Colonel Sanders fact before we hop on the Frankenstein train.
Yeah, we still have to kill Dippel.
Yeah. Colonel Sanders is the Japanese equivalent of Santa Claus.
Well, yeah. We went over this not too long ago. Where
Did we?
KFC is the official Christmas meal.
Yeah. I'm senile. Sorry.
It's all right. Yeah, that guy, I was, the story goes on that again.
There's like a baseball curse wrapped up into it too, apparently. Like all kinds of weird shit.
So the first franchise owner of KFC in Japan marketed it as the Americans eat this on Christmas, and like America fever, they wanted to keep riding the ride with baseball and all the other shit that's cool here.
Yeah.
And so people,
they were just finding out about all this shit.
He just lied his ass off for like years, and like he even
It's
admitted
brilliant.
it. Yeah, he even admitted it in an interview like fucking like 2000 or something. He's like, I didn't know how to market it, so I just made some shit up.
You know what that is?
Worked.
It's 100% exactly the scene from Wolf of Wall Street. Sell me this pencil. It's exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
You like fucking create at least the illusion of need or want.
Yeah.
And
And then the guy created the in a sense he created a FOMO for
a
fear of missing out on this cool tradition, and like
don't FOMO, YOLO.
Yeah.
LOL.
Poop. Anyways, I think we need to kill him and then we're going to take a break. If that works for you.
Oh, shit. Are we close to killing him? Let's see.
Before we get to his connection to Frankenstein.
Yeah, because...
At least the novel of Frankenstein.
Let's see. Okay. So, yeah, they got those guys together, made them do a bunch of gold, but it didn't work. They gave him a bunch of excuses. So he said, we don't have enough food and provisions. And the guy was like, well, fuck! I just opened all these gold labs. That doesn't work. So thanks a lot, dickheads. So he left that. And then he ended up meeting a Lutheran minister who showed him a number of works from his personal library, which he thought Dippel would be able to make sense of. One was entitled Veil Raised on the Mysteries of the Beginning of the World by Guillaume Postel. The other was a collection of various authors on chemistry and alchemy, including experiments by Raymond Lull, who, oddly enough, would be fucksing around with like early computers and automatons, so kind of a weird Frankensteinish parallel. We might cover him one day too. As well as other alchemists such as...
Yo, mom!
Oh, also included prophecies and practices of the Italian Count Troviso, and the 12 keys to knowledge of the so-called Brother Basil Valentinus, a French mystic, poet, prophet, and linguist who unsuccessfully attempted to become a Jesuit, but was eventually condemned to 50 years in prison for indulging in magic and witchcraft until he finally escaped, as well as the aforementioned Paracelsus and two other guys named Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa, another famous alchemist, and another guy named von Helmont, who I've never heard of. But these were all more or less influences on Dippel. He sort of poo-pooed these books that this Lutheran gave him at first, but the more he kind of looked at it and read into it, started making more sense, and he had it all figured out soon, because all this alchemical shit started like waving around in his mind and becoming a little more
thundery.
Yeah, that scared the shit out of me. Yeah, so it was becoming a little more clear in his head, and it was sort of making more sense to him after that. Dippel eventually formulated a preparation and approached the Landgrave of Hesse again for funds to build a laboratory. Although he likely wanted to purchase Castle Frankenstein, he instead bought property near on credit, and after 3 months of intensive work, he came up with a secret formula, which Dippel claimed was an alchemical success, basically by synthesizing gold by mixing 50 parts silver and mercury with 50 parts silver and mercury with the help and aid of the Philosopher's Stone, which he'd apparently discovered not long after reading those weird texts, and thus was able to produce pure gold for his patron, the Landgrave. But, according to ancient tradition, as we mentioned before, alchemists aren't supposed to use the gold that they come up with for personal gain. So, because he did that to try and buy land for his laboratory, supposedly the container in which he kept the Philosopher's Stone broke, and it, I guess, I don't know, like, what
happened to it.
Well, yeah, there's that. It just, like, fucking spoiled, I guess. Like, it was like, bleh, and fucking shriveled up.
It melted away.
Yeah, so, I guess he fucked himself on that one.
Way to go.
Yeah, way to go, Dip. Let's see. He spent nearly 3 years trying and failing to reduce to 3 years. He spent trying to. He spent 3 years. Fuck. He spent 3 years trying and failing to rediscover the formula, but was never able to. And then he would essentially wander around, leaving Germany. Okay, for the next 25 years, he wandered around. He settled in Berlin, the newly named capital of the Kingdom of Prussia under Frederick I. There he came under the protection of Count August von Wittgenstein, administrator for the royal domains, who persuaded King Frederick to grant Dippel a mansion and resources to quote-unquote promote scientific research in other fields. Dippel would later focus on the creation of an unusual elixir meant to be a multiple cure-all. Since blood is the life, he figured he'd distill blood, probably from an animal, we think, presumably, and distilled it into a heavy, viscous brown odorous liquid that we discussed earlier called Dippel's oil. Not long after, he allegedly, around the same time, discovered Prussian blue. So, given his notoriety and just his current patron's word, Dippel would eventually incur the jealous wrath of fellow scientists and famous quacks, such as one Count Don Domenico Manuel Cajetanio, as well as the hostility of theologians, which caused him to become the victim of an intrigue, quote-unquote, in which he was accused of being a Swedish spy when some secret correspondence to Charles XII of Sweden, to whom he bore a passing superficial resemblance, were discovered and promptly landed his ass in jail. Due to the intervention of his patrons, however, he left for Holland, a country traditionally known to provide asylum to those seeking refuge from the oppression of enemy lands. He then settled at Marsen, assumed Dutch nationality, and dedicated his time to medical studies, with this thesis at Leiden University centered upon his earlier animal and chemical experiments when he was back in Berlin. He became particularly interested in the mechanisms by which limbs, sinews, and muscles were attached to the main body resulting in his freely experimenting upon animals and practicing vivisection from this point on. So this is really when he got into cutting shit up while still alive, because that's the accurate definition of vivisection. It's chopping up while alive.
Gross.
Yeah, there's a lot of it'll come back. He used a combination of his animal research along with the Philosopher's Stone to discover the chemical and or other processes which engender life itself. And this is where a lot of the main Frankenstein shit comes in, like how to create artificial life around this time.
I got the brain that said Abby normal. All right, Froderick.
I found the hump with that. Dippel's philosophy, that was Henry Kissinger saying the name.
Yeah.
Dippel's philosophy concerning the relationship between body and spirit was by no means original, as he felt the body was an inert substance animated by errant spirit that could leave any time and infuse life into another. He surmised that the creation of the life impulse simply meant facilitating passage of one spirit into the inanimate corpse of another. So, and this is where he allegedly was conducting experiments to literally try to transfer the soul of one body into another. So he's fucking around with like some kooky fucking shit by this point.
I believe he even tried to use a funnel at one point.
Yes.
Yes. That's science needs funnels in order.
Of course.
Yeah.
That's the only way you can transfer a soul from one body to another. Though he did not elucidate upon the method in which this operation was performed, however, according to his philosophy, that the life-giving process could be performed through occult rites. However, according to his philosophy, the life-giving process could be performed through occult rites instead of the science believed in and utilized by the fictional Victor Frankenstein. However, like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, Dippel would be damned to the life of a wanderer, as after 7 years in Holland, during which he assembled all his previous writings and acquired his medical skills, Dippel once again felt compelled to flee Holland for Denmark in 1714. Whatever the circumstances were that motivated Dippel's various night flights, I think he's probably, at this point, we probably had fucking 5 or 6. I don't know. He just mysteriously leaves in the middle of the night. I'm sure it does.
Went out for cigarettes and some ice cream.
And some
just never came back.
Brains. All are supposedly very involved, but have never been satisfactorily explained as far as any of the records or history go, such as why he was forced to leave Holland, allegedly with it being such a tolerant place. So he must have done something pretty fucked up or pissed off some people pretty bad.
Yeah, they're pretty easygoing from what I hear.
Yeah.
And they would love our show, so if you guys want to reference it.
Was he possibly once again engaged in other subversive or perhaps even criminal activities? Records from that era are spotty at best. Soon he incurred the wrath of a former patron, Count Reventon, after having written several pamphlets allegedly offensive to local political rulers, and was again imprisoned, this time with a far more severe sentence than the one that he served in Berlin. Condemned to life in prison, his works were then burned by the public hangman right before his eyes. He was bound hand and foot and flung into the deep, dark, dank-ass cell in the castle called Hammershof on the island of Bornholm in the Baltic Sea. He was imprisoned till 1726. Yet due to his extraordinary medical reputation, he was rescued due to the intervention of the Danish queen, only to become her personal physician. So, once again, I find it odd that this guy, he's obviously like a janky-ass criminal of sorts.
Yeah.
Like, he's a fucking bit of a con man and a huckster and a flim-flammer. But at the same time, he has all these very powerful associations. I mean, even with a bomb-ass medical record or whatever, or reputation, being outweighed by, like, obviously, people probably know the bad shit more readily than they know his reputation as a doctor, but still rescued by a queen.
Yeah.
So
maybe she wanted augmentation of some sort.
maybe she wanted her hair higher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the ticket.
As the king was suffering from an ailment none of his physicians were able to either identify or cure. Dippel's idea that diseases don't originate in a malfunctioning body, but rather that the spirit must be healed first, either by psychic or suggestive means, and only then could the body be restored via aid of chemistry and or medicine. However, Dippel was still a controversial figure that just couldn't help but piss people off during his stay in Sweden. One Swedish bishop, alluding to his medical talents, called him, quote-unquote, the messiah of the nobility, while others suspected him of being a Russian spy. Meanwhile, a Swedish baron said, "We certainly do not recognize him as a messiah. We might even call him the bane of bishops, since his coming to Sweden made as much noise as a Russian army of 100,000 invading the country." Well, that's just hyperbole right there.
Well,
Dippel was continuously considered suspect, very sus, I believe the kids call it these days. So much so that he was denied the bishopric of Uppsala. So he almost had a royal title, but his reputation came and bit him in the ass again. He left the country, returning to Germany after 25 years, reuniting with his many siblings, and he seems to have finally found a measure of success once he'd found unknown chemical or alchemical secrets, which he later offered to share with the Landgrave of Hesse, this fucking guy again. We know this due to an almost entirely overlooked document in which he states that in exchange for Castle Frankenstein, he would reveal the aforementioned secrets, which he strictly stipulated must remain confidential and known only to the male heirs of the House of Hesse, and only if the last male heir died would he be permitted to reveal the secret to others. However, these negotiations apparently broke down as nothing ever came of this particular transaction. What was the nature of the chemical secret Dippel was willing to sell the Landgrave of Hesse in return for Castle Frankenstein? Why was Dippel intent on assuming the status of Lord Frankenstein when it was little more than abandoned ruins? Was it the fact that he was born there? Reason enough? What did he plan to make of that castle? He
probably had all his pornography hidden in there somewhere.
Yeah, like hidden inside the wall.
Yeah.
Like something I found one time in our house. Was it to be converted into a sinister scientific laboratory? Unfortunately, there's no documentation to answer these questions, and the whole quote-unquote deal has an aura of mystery usually overlooked or glossed over by most of Dippel's biographers. One possible clue to the nature of this secret comes from a mysterious pamphlet that Dippel printed in Darmstadt in 1733. As his many enemies were starting to circulate rumors of his impending death, he startled many of his readers by announcing he discovered a formula that would extend his lifespan to 135 years old. But, with two T's, within a year of this, he would be found dead on the morning of April 24th, 1734, by his longtime patron, Count August von Wittgenstein. When his body was found, it was cold and rigid. He'd been foaming at the mouth, and the right side of his face was a dark blue. Authorities were afraid to conduct an autopsy, though his head was chopped the fuck open and his brains gandered at. And physicians concluded that Dippel had suffered from some form of attack or a unnatural death.
Suspected poisoning.
Yeah. Some believe that he'd been killed by the devil for breaking some of the contractual obligations they'd fucking drawn up before.
Regular Tuesday meetings at noon.
Yeah. I gotta meet Satan at Chipotle in like 5 minutes. Shit. Okay. The most logical explanation was that he'd likely poisoned himself, and perhaps not intentionally, as it's possible he may have experimentally tested a new quote-unquote alchemical medical solution on himself. He was buried in the chapel of Laaspe. Do you know how to say that?
Nope.
I'm just going to say Laspe.
Bad
Laspe?
Bad Laspe. Laspe.
Yeah. Yet, very, very strangely, Dippel's remains have since disappeared. And it was not long after he was buried, too.
Bum, bum, bum.
So, I mean, if I had to throw a completely batshit theory out there, maybe he did discover some alchemical shit and it only temporarily killed him.
And you got up and
fucking dug himself out. Yeah. Castle Frankenstein would eventually fall into the hands of one Lady Euler, who was a demented wife of a German soldier who had defected to the French and would eventually begin tearing apart the castle and its many contents, either for firewood or to sell, in order to finance a revolving court of lovers.
What a weird rummage sale.
Yeah. Basically, she let the goddamn castle fall into such disrepair that it eventually became home to bats, owls, eagles, wolves, etc. All kinds of fucking Animal Planet shit taking place up in there. But she eventually died of being a cuckoo whacked out broad. And in one final note to Castle Frankenstein, many years later, large groups of treasure hunters would show up on multiple occasions, saying like, oh, we heard tell this alchemist, fucking Dippel, he fucking
There's
figured
philosopher's stones up in them hills.
yeah, basically. Or, he figured out how to make gold and had like a secret stash somewhere. So a bunch of these treasure hunters show up with like an official deed from some dude saying it's okay to dig, or so they say.
Yeah, we're here for old man Dippel's gold.
Yeah, and they start digging around the outskirts of the castle, and there's like a local bishop like, "What are you doing? Get out of here, you crazy kids!" Apparently he was played by Walter Matthau. So the bishop is screaming and yelling at him, and they're like, "Hey, fuck you, old man, we're here for the gold, all right?" So they're digging and digging and digging, and eventually one of them is like digging right under the castle, and a big chunk of it just goes and just crushes the fucking guy.
Nice.
So yeah, and it took 50-something men and a chain attached to his body to be pulled out, and then they just said, fuck it, and reburied him again without giving him a funeral. There were several more attempts to look for treasure, but no one ever found anything. And that is the end, essentially, of Conrad Dippel and Castle Frankenstein. Or is it?
Dun, dun, dun. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back, and it's all the Mary Shelley and all the fun stuff.
Oh, yeah. Some weird shit, trust me.
She was into some weird stuff, man.
Oh, I'm in. Oh, yeah.
They're in the audience is into weird stuff, too.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
These guys are all right.
Keep your barf bags handy, folks. We'll be right back.
All right. More after this. Hey, we're back.
Hey, everybody.
Thank you so much for sticking around.
Yeah, I just commit a flagrant crime against humanity in your bathroom.
Yeah, I heard.
It was like Osama bin Laden driving a Porsche 911. It was just in bad taste. You know what I'm saying? I may not even leave this in the final recording now that I'm saying it out loud. Anyways.
It's pretty rough. So, Dippel being the basis for a lot of this stuff, it inspired Mary Shelley and her crew. In fact, Mary Shelley was actually going through some very personal things when she learned about the urban myth that is Dippel.
Yeah.
She had recently gone through the loss of a child.
Yeah.
The whole concept of the
her and Percy Bysshe,
the reanimator.
I think that's how you say it.
And like this is the when she was operating. That was back when what realism was a big deal, and existentialism and all that stuff. Like all
the philosophical movements
and art movements.
Oh, okay.
Stuff like that. Ralph
was,
Waldo Emerson and all that was real big.
I thought that was like romanticism. No, that's earlier. Okay.
But
as far as literary movements.
Yeah. And as far as movements are concerned, and Mike's movements, thanks for segueing into that.
Yeah.
I wanted to give a brief little moment here for German Expressionism that ultimately came out of this whole monster craze and all the
Gothic horror literature.
Yeah, all the baddies and stuff.
Yeah.
The Germans were the first to do on film
Mm-hmm.
in 1915, The Golem, and it was the first monster movie.
Speaking of artificial life forms,
Yeah, that film actually led into a couple of other ones, like are the tropes now.
Yeah.
Frankenstein and Dracula or
Your
Nosferatu.
Well, yeah. As far as German expressionist film goes, I know the main big ones are M, which is pretty good. I haven't seen it in a long time, though, but that's got our old buddy Peter Lorre in it.
Oh, nice.
Based on a true story. Metropolis, not the one that Superman lives in, but the one overseen by the mechanical supervillain Dr. Rotwang.
Dr. Oz. No, the Wizard of Oz. Sorry. Dr. Oz is busy doing other things.
Oh, and Dr. Caligari, or The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari was another big one, which is also a pretty fucking awesome movie. And Nosferatu, of course.
Yeah. So, like, all these, American filmmakers were looking at this, and they were seeing the success. Shit, man, we got to get on this, because that's how people in Hollywood sounded back then.
Mm-hmm.
And so they started making their own monster movies, and they weren't very good. So they just kept kind of watching what the Germans were doing, and then, fake it till you make it.
Some of the first, I know, outside of Germany, like British and American films were horror films. Notably, that includes some kind of monster of sort. There's a really famous Lost Werewolf movie. Can't remember the name of it, but the werewolf in it looked pretty boss.
Was it The Lost Boys? Oh, wait, that's vampires.
Yeah, and way later.
Yeah.
They're maggots, Michael. You're eating maggots. Except he didn't say it like that.
So through a couple of hours of just, like, digging through stuff on the Nerd, a couple of philosophical questions came up about monsters.
Yeah.
And so then I decided it might be a good place to have a roundtable discussion on the concept of the monster.
Okay.
And what it means to not necessarily be a monster, but
what it symbolizes, or what it
is and its implications.
Yeah.
It's important to a lot of things that go on around here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole concept of the other, first of all, comes to mind. It also depends on your monster, too. And what the symbolism behind it is.
So, once that's point number one, right? They all have some kind of symbolism behind it. And whether you draw what the actual creator of that monster in that particular story was trying to get across, or a new one, Romero's zombies are, even though they never call it that, Romero's undead are supposed to be communists in the first one, and the mindless consumer in the second, because it takes place in a mall and stuff like that. And then the Thing are all three versions of the Thing, even the one from the 1950s.
Yeah.
And technically, the Thing 2011 is actually supposed to be the prequel to the Thing in 1982, right? Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
Like, that whole thing is about contagions and diseases.
Yeah,
And,
I could see some communist parallels with that too. I know that Invasion of the Body Snatchers most definitely is a fucking communist parable. Most of those schlocky, like, B horror films that came out in the 50s and 60s, like what many people, I guess, would generally consider, looking backward, would call like either the space age and or the quote unquote the atomic age. You always had the Attack of the Broccoli Man, or I Was a Teenage Caveman.
Well, see, that's the thing, is that the original Thing from the Thing
looked like a big weird
is a broccoli man. He's a plant. He's a living plant.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's a scene in the original one where they're in the quote-unquote greenhouse.
Mm-hmm.
He hid one of the sled dogs in there after he ate it, and then he looked around and, like, he was like, ooh. Like, they're using us for food. That's weird. And
the Oscar goes to...
Yeah.
Broccoli Man.
Broccoli Man.
Did you know that broccoli is the smartest vegetable?
I hear it has
IQ of 2.
Yeah. So... if there's like a hidden theme behind it. I was also looking at they were talking about, I think it was Cracked After Dark, they raised an interesting question. So if a monster is something we don't know or don't understand, right? So we tend to, if we don't understand it and we can't make sense of it, we tend to fear it, right? Or maybe it's just something that is a prevalent killer of my particular demographic. Like they were saying in that Cracked article or short that teenagers, a lot of their horror stories revolve around cars, because they're getting involved in driving for the first time. And like even the guy with the hook and the scraping and stuff, and then like,
oh man, urban legends are all about social anxieties, dude.
yeah,
Like they're all rooted in, modern day fears. I mean, contemporary fears, social fears.
So even
and
like
the ones that are based on true stories are particularly fucked up. Like the true stories behind, like, for example, the babysitter, the calls coming from in the house, like the actual story behind that is really fucked up. There's obvious others, like there was the Texas or Texarkana Moonlight Murders is essentially what brought forth the hook hand guy and shit like that.
according to the Lover's Lane killer out there in Texarkana, that wore the hood and would go in there and only
dressed up like the Elephant Man, kind of.
Yeah.
I am a serial killer.
They combined him and Ed Gein to make the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Okay, is that who you were trying to think of last time? We were talking about.
I think so.
Why Texas Chainsaw Massacre was based in Texas.
Yeah, and then they used the whole trope of the hills have eyes kind of thing, because it's a whole inbred family.
Yeah.
And like apparently the Habsburgs moved to Texas. No offense to the Habsburgs.
Man, fuck them Habsburgs.
The cultural focuses right on we've already kind of got the concept of this could be communism or this could be this or that, and then they even made a really salient point about zombies and vampires, right? Statistically speaking, and I'm sure there's an outlier there wherever.
Oh, I'm sure.
When there's
we mentioned this last episode as well, I think. Yeah.
When there's Democrats in office, it's zombies. When it's Republicans, it's vampires.
I can't really attest to this still now, though, because in the last... Well, I mean, I don't know. That article probably came out while Obama was still president.
Yeah, I think it was in 2009.
But I can't... I mean, I don't pay a lot of attention to fucking movies that come out as much unless it's something I'm really psyched about. But I can't think of any real big vampire movies that came out while
Orange Julius was in office.
Old Caesar. No, I can't think of any major vampire movies. I don't know. I'm probably wrong. I'm sure that several came out.
Yeah, and see, like I said, there's probably outliers out there, but the real outlier, my favorite one that I was looking at, because dig down the rabbit hole and you'll find all kinds of weird stuff.
Yeah, like rabbit shit.
Yeah, mostly rabbit shit. But psychopaths and psychopathy.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's because anyone can be one.
Yeah.
And they look just like you and I.
They blend in because, and according to this jerk, the percentages of psychopathy in our species ranges anywhere from 1 to 4% of any adult. So 1 to 4% of the entire species.
Dude, it's got to be way more than that.
Is a fucking psychopath. Well, and that's the thing, man. So, you don't necessarily always have them walk in the door to a psych, how are you supposed to know? But, generally, as a rule of thumb, they propose that 1 to 4% are probably psychopaths. And, they say that stuff, they say certain industries require psychopaths, but not necessarily.
Politics, business.
Yeah. Stuff like that, where it's all cutthroat.
Yeah.
And,
lead pipe mercenary cruelty.
The one place it tends to crop up the most is in dictatorships and stuff, right? Because they have to do all that.
Or high energy sales, multi-level marketing.
Yeah. Just things that, sane people probably don't want to deal with on a regular basis.
The entertainment industry.
Yeah.
But then I was about to say...
Podcasts.
Yeah. I was about to say, now that I'm thinking about it, and I was saying that the numbers had to be higher. I mean, the numbers have to be higher than 1 to 4%, I would think. Now, I don't know when that figure you got necessarily came out. Probably. But at the same time, I'm also thinking that it's not necessarily psychopathy or psychopathy or however has not necessarily run rampant or become more commonplace. Now that I think about it more, I think narcissism has become more rampant and commonplace.
And that's
due to our instant click gratification, fucking me culture.
There's a part of psychopathy that is also, I mean,
not every narcissist is a psychopath, but most psychopaths are narcissists. Would be a fairly
all psychopaths are narcissists.
Yeah.
Which is, it's just so weird to think about. I mean, look, I get being selfish, to a degree, right? Self-preservation is a natural phenomenon.
Somebody's got to look out for numero uno.
That's right.
Hermano.
Someone's got to carry this corpse around all day.
Yeah, someone's got to get those kids to school. I don't care how drunk you are.
Yeah. Bus driver that was caught drinking that effervescent alcoholic beverage that's not allowed to be said on this show.
Smoking that K2.
Man, I really enjoy Monsters, and I enjoy it so much because I think that, once again, in that Cracked article, they made a great point. It's the imagination, like we were talking about earlier, right? Like, as long as you don't see the money shot, the monster, you're good to go.
You see like a leg or a hand.
Or a shadow.
Yeah.
Or like just the anticipation of fear. It can be the simplest act even in your own life, right? Like you got to take the trash out at night, and like your pareidolia sees a face in the bushes across the street.
Yeah, man. I get it all the time.
Yeah.
Little bastard raccoons hanging around everywhere. Like, I mean, I love them. They're cute little trash pandas, but they sound like little pig monsters. And I'm sitting out there in the dark, you know, smoking a cigarette, 2:33 in the morning. And I hear like
knock over stuff,
and just they start fighting each other and shit.
Yeah,
and of course you're gonna jump a little bit, just like, oh shit.
It's when you see it, right, and then you understand what it is. And I think like even that old timey movie, Dog Soldiers, right?
That was a good one.
It was a fucking great one because they only showed the guts and gore and stuff first, and the terror, right?
But don't elucidate on that particular monster too much, because we will be visiting that down the road.
And, you know, don't eat moldy bread, kids.
Yeah.
But
unless you want to.
Yeah. The whole concept of it's also concepts that have never been really thought about before, right?
Yeah.
Which segues into a connection here between Mary Shelley and Frankenstein. The only time it's ever really been thought about was in a religious sense, right?
Yeah.
Oh man, this dude rose a body from the dead.
Yeah.
And like,
playing God.
Yeah. And so,
hence the alternative title, The Modern Prometheus.
Yeah.
And also, people don't really understand, or well, I mean,
he just gave him CPR. That's all it was, man. I was just saying. Like,
that's the secret formula. A lot of people don't at first consciously make this connection, but Frankenstein, the story, is actually one of the first science fiction stories. I'd say it's more a science fiction story than a horror story almost.
And see, once again, they made a point on that. A lot of the monsters that essentially are fucking tropes now, Scooby-Doo villains.
Yeah.
That's all parts of our past, right? Like
Old Man Humphreys.
Yeah. Terrifies the shit out of me still, Old Man Humphreys. But like those are all parts of our past, right? Like the werewolf is somewhat of the wild man and all that.
It's both our closeness and separation from nature.
Yeah. Because we're stuck in this paradox of being animals but also not being animals.
Yeah.
We're still surprised by death, even though it's around us every day, right?
Yeah.
You see it all the time. You've seen Roadkill.
Well, plus also, like, I'm paraphrasing H.P. Lovecraft, but he would, you know, talk about, like, the nature of fear. He'd say mankind's oldest, most primal emotion is fear, especially fear of the unknown.
Yes.
It goes all the way back to fucking caveman times when you hear the fucking... That's a shitty fucking saber-toothed tiger.
I thought it was a chainsaw.
It's technically the same thing, basically. It just has... It's on legs. But yeah, it's the glowing eyes in the dark. It's the knowing that there's a fucking predator out there that can take you down.
Yeah, and we're predators, which is even strange. It's like, you know, we're monsters too.
Oh yeah.
To something.
Oh yeah.
When you get new concepts to be afraid of because it's never been allowed before, right? Like science fiction is what could be.
Yeah.
Right. And like 1984 is a great example of what could be. Like,
yeah,
you become you're not even an autonomous automaton or anything anymore. You're just you're human capital.
Yeah. Well, shit, we're fucking human capital.
Yeah,
right
still.
Now, so, yeah.
But they're just really out about it, you know.
Yeah.
Like,
out and proud.
Yeah. There's a human capital parade.
Well, the crazy thing about science fiction too, more than any other genre, I think, is that science fiction it has a much more socio-cultural predictive element to it.
Yeah, there's a curve somewhere.
Yes, because I mean, you know, Captain Nemo, Jules Verne, submarines. I think the other character was like Tom Swift or something, predicted stun guns.
Yeah, you're not even allowed to say taser on certain platforms anymore.
Really?
Don't tase me, bro!
Electronic stimulation device.
Oh,
well, that's very vague.
Yeah. It could be good or bad.
Cake toppers in the South, I believe is what they're called now.
Yeah, you have to ask for my name in the shop. Cattle prods.
Yeah.
Things of this nature.
And with each new facet of technology we harness, this other stuff starts to happen. So, like, harnessing electricity, because people were already experimenting with it.
Yeah.
Benjamin Franklin notoriously experimented not only with sex workers, as Mike called them earlier, but electricity by
and
trying
orgies and devil worship, supposedly.
and had illegitimate kids out the wazoo.
Oh, tons, I'm sure.
Father of our country. But he experimented a lot with electricity to see what it was, and then they discovered lightning is electricity, and then, well, I wonder if there's a way we can harness it.
Don't tase me, bro!
Then because their curiosity gets the best of us, so now like these concepts of using electricity in everyday science become a huge factor in just this, because this story would be vastly different without just that basis of technology, right? Like,
it's weird too, because like when you have a newer aspect of natural science or technology first show up, you remember how like 80s movies thought that computers were fucking magical and that you could program a bunch of shit into it and make a hot girlfriend for yourself?
And you had to wear a bra on your head to make sure it happened. Yeah.
And she turns your dickhead older brother into a weird like spud creature,
Yeah.
etc. Yeah, things like that. See, and electricity was fairly, new science, the investigation and research into it. So when it's new like that, it still has this fairly, unknown magical bent to it. And again, with science fiction, the other name for science fiction, other than its original name, scientifiction, which is shitty. I'm glad they changed it. But it's also called speculative fiction. So that's why it's forecasting, it's futurism to a degree.
Yeah.
So you're just basically kind of looking at things as how they are and extrapolating it. Like all those fucking crazy Philip K. Dick movies, like Blade Runner or Minority Report, the fucking ads. The ads for brain medicine are all over the fucking place, all over the city. Like,
which is already happening all the time.
That's the world we're living in now.
Hey, guys, boner pills. Like, it's everywhere. Like, but even, like, Terminator, right? Like, apparently even in John Connor's 30s or 40s, they'll still be using digital watches because that's that's the pinnacle of technology at the time, right? Like,
well, yeah, but if you have a robot uprising at the same time, you might want to limit your reliance.
Also, I would like to state for the record that if Skynet were a real thing, which I'm postulating that it is, okay, in this world,
is or will be.
In this world, where Skynet is real.
In this world or in the Terminator world?
In this world.
In our world.
That you and I currently inhabit.
Okay. Here.
Now, if you somehow manage to become a sentient AI being with access to files of every Terminator movie ever made, and every time the movie said it failed, right?
Not to mention every other one of the hundreds of thousands of science fiction media about rogue AI.
So why would the AI send a bunch of fucking robots? It's going to do something different. Like, I don't know, hijack a social media platform and send everyone into a giant echo chamber where you get a dose of dopamine every time someone says, I really like your post about your cat.
I'm pretty sure I've mentioned the theory of Rocco's basilisk before on this show.
Yes, you have.
Yeah, I mean, that's a thought experiment that people literally killed themselves over out of fear because they thought, there could be a very real quantums related into this that, the world that you are living in, it ties into simulation theory and that basically everything is dictated and predetermined and that your life doesn't fucking mean anything because you're working towards the creation of the AI, etc.
And see, even like in the concept of a simulation, I fail to see the difference between a simulation theory world and Nietzsche's fucking idea of it's a dumb, deaf, and mute creator. Because
That's pretty much the same thing.
why would any clockmaker, for lack of a better term, why would the clockmaker totally make the clock feel fucking pain on stuff like all of, not like just like burn your hand, but like
because it's a psychopath,
brutal fucking thing. Yeah, but see, it's indifferent. It has right or yes, all the creator is an actual fucking horrible being that just loves to watch.
And this kind of goes back to our Simon Magus Gnosticism episode.
Chaos.
This is indeed a disturbing universe.
It's Mark Hamill as the Joker. It's like that's.
I would say that with simulation theory specifically, like simulation theory implies that there would have to be some kind of overarching program of some sort that is running the simulation
And another existence as well.
Yeah, in a higher frequency, whatever you want to call it, another plane. But at the same time, because you have a master program, it means that the master program is able to more or less manipulate things. You should really read I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. It kind of deals with a lot of this. It's Harlan Ellison. He's a crotchety little bastard, but he's a pretty goddamn good science fiction writer. Yeah, actually, I have some stuff that kind of like goes into this because I was looking into, I don't want to get to my initial connection to this, but H.G. Wells came up in my studies. And H.G. Wells is obviously, a well-known science fiction writer.
Didn't we diss him?
Yeah, we were going to cover him, but he ended up talking like this, like a little weird midget munchkin man. I don't know. I just couldn't fucking put up with it.
It's the microphone.
But yeah, he's one of the best well-known science fiction writers. But at the same time, he also is a very educated man. He comes from money. He's, I think he's medically trained as well as various other disciplines.
As unmedically trained?
Yeah. Besides medicine, essentially. But, he wrote, War of the Worlds, The Invisible Man.
An allegory for Immaculate Conception.
Really?
No, I don't know.
But you're just thinking of how in that one comic book, The Invisible Man was hanging out in that girl's dorm and was banging everyone, and they thought it was Immaculate Conception.
Well, I was actually thinking of that Kevin Bacon movie where he's got it out for that lady from
Elizabeth Shue. That was her name.
I thought it was is she the lady that's brought from The Handmaid's Tale or whatever?
I don't know. I've never watched it.
I don't be knowing.
I don't know no Handmaid's Tale. I mean, I know it's a thing, but I haven't watched it.
The wife loves it.
Anyways. So, H.G. Wells, very, very, very influential science fiction writer. Some would say, to a degree, that he wrote the stories that he did in order to specifically influence culture to a very specific end. I know that in conspiracy culture, they have this concept called predictive programming, but they usually associate it with, I hate that they call it that, but they associate it with like, oh, you could see the name Sandy Hook in the Batman movie, so we knew it was going to happen or whatever. I don't know why they call that predictive programming, unless it was like, oh, the guy who fucking did the Sandy Hook thing saw Batman and that's what set him off, like it was a fucking MK Ultra trigger or some shit. I think the term predictive programming, either that or like social engineering might be another better term for it. The constant idea, like, this whole like current climate of alien disclosure kind of shit
that suddenly disappeared.
Around. It'll
got
be
like
in and out.
2 days of coverage here, and then Mexico was
That's
like,
what I was saying. No one's gonna give a shit.
We have concrete proof
unless there's
of these concrete aliens.
Unless there's an alien in a cage saying, "Don't taste me, bro," fucking like, no one's gonna give a shit.
This is Bibble. We've known about aliens for a long time.
But at the same time, we've been conditioned to think that a threat of some sort could come from outer space, whereas the true threat, the bigger threat, is probably the government or people in charge who, if there are alien life forms, would probably already be in contact with them, because when the teacher shows up on the fucking playground, the bully is not the guy in charge anymore.
Yep.
So fucking, it's obviously a self-preservation of power thing, I would think. It's not just that. I'll get into a further example later because I don't want to get all the cards out yet with H.G. Wells. But science fiction, I think, can be used as a very much a tool of social engineering in that we have certain expectations about what kind of engines or drives would send us into space, or what kind of technology it's going to take, etc. I mean, back in the fucking late 1800s, they still thought, aether was running shit.
When people are like, oh, dude, check it out, proof of time travel. There's guys totally got a cell phone. They're like, well, I can do you one better. Look, I have proof that aliens visited. It's called fire, because that's what we use to launch a giant fucking missile into space to land a man on the moon that we never really did, because it's all made up and it's all bullshit anyway. It's all bad for you. And like, you're telling me that just because someone has a mannerism similar to something you've seen today, that clearly they have a Bluetooth in their ear in 1942.
Yeah. See, that's also the fallacy, is that we're thinking in our modern terms.
Yeah.
This is a big problem with anthropology
with idiots.
and evolutionary study. Well, I mean, yeah, basically. But this is a big problem with evolutionary studies as well, because people automatically impose the conditions in which we live today upon the world 24,000 plus years ago. So, I mean, there are certain questions that aren't the variables and potentialities aren't being taken into account. So, but because someone is walking around holding a little black thing, and we're just so, programmed to see that that's a phone that we carry everywhere, that, they had little radios back then.
Yeah, they had crystal radios in the 40s.
I keep finding instances where technology, people as a group, as a mass, have a very short, shitty attention span.
Yes.
And we forget things very quickly. And I find this over and over again with technologies and scientific, breakthroughs, etc. We just forget shit, man.
For the record, wind turbines, they used to be called windmills, and they chewed up your grain for you.
Yeah.
And they replaced the burrow from rolling over the grain for you. And they also made wine and olive oil and all the other stuff. It was an agricultural tool.
And Don Quixote was fucking them up.
That's right. And then on top of that...
And then one turned to the other and said, hey, what kind of music do you like? And the other windmill said, I'm a big metal fan.
See?
Yeah.
Perfect.
I love that.
So there's two types of engines that have been around for fucking ever, right? The steam engine, which nuclear reaction, the steam goes through a goddamn turbine. It's still steam powered. It's just you're using chemistry to power.
They might have found one in China that goes way, way, way back, like thousands of years.
And then the diesel engine was invented by the Dutch in the fucking 1700s.
Yeah.
They just cooked the shit on a fucking paddle.
Dude, several people have created perpetual motion machines when people have said it's fucking impossible, but it's been done so many fucking times that I've found fucking accounts for. And I'm going into the realm of conspiracy here, so everyone put your tinfoil hat on. But from what I've read of like certain people trying to break out of the dependence on petrochemicals, etc., and things like that, and not necessarily like 0 point energy, but like better forms of propulsion and energy. There was a whole shitload of people who were researching gravity drives and how to manipulate gravity, because it's still such a big mystery to us now, what gravity is and does necessarily, and how it affects or interplays with everything.
And now we know just enough to make it dangerous and scary
for
horror
we're
or
all
science
gonna
fiction.
Be fucking squished through our own assholes right into the fucking ground. But yeah, no, people were like fucking around with like plans and fucking patents for gravity drives and fucking alternative, forms of propulsion and shit. And then right around the time that old
dirty
president JFK, our old dirty president JFK, gets assassinated, you don't hear about that shit in the media anymore. It like disappears from all kinds of shit. And they were talking about it in like like big publications. So, you also have to take into account that It's just like the Tesla shit we talked about in those episodes. Like, he had all these potential fixes and technology and scientific breakthrough ideas, etc., that could alleviate a lot of the problems that we have going on now. But, nope, can't have that.
But Mary Shelley, or on to your point, we got off on a really far sideways thing there.
No, yeah, it's all good. It's all connected. No, I was going to say, the idea of the monster, actually, the word monster, this dates all the way back to a Greco-Roman word. I believe it was Latin, actually, first, monstrum, which technically means like omen or sign or portent, basically. It's a signal of things to come. And the word that we think of as monster would probably be more closely translated back in those days as prodigium, where we get our word for prodigy, for meaning like a freak. Whatever it is that you're good at, they're called a prodigy, basically. But back in ye old Greco-Roman times, and even before that, there was a practice known as teratoscopy. And the word terato, or terra, T-E-R-A with one R, or terato, like, the best modern example I can give you that it's used in is a teratoma, which means a giant monstrous tumor that includes like eyes and teeth and hair in it. Because terra means monstrous. So you had teratoscopists who basically, anytime there was a deformed animal or child born, they read this as a form of fucking prophecy and divination, basically.
Like that kid that got poisoned with Agent Orange and had legs growing out of his stomach.
Thalidomide children. Yeah. It's fucked up.
Terrible.
But yeah, I don't know. The old-timey shit that they had back in the day sounds a lot worse because the medicine wasn't as advanced. But at the same time, you also had teratology, which is the study of the monstrous. So yeah, you had teratology, which was the study of the monstrous. Out of that, since you had people who were studying it, eventually, many years later, well, I don't know. The timeline is contentious to see where these things follow. But then would eventually come the teratologists, who were people who, well, this is where it gets pretty fucked up. Okay, so the best modern example that I can give of what may have been a fairly consistent practice throughout certain points in history and certain places in the world. There's this book by Victor Hugo, the guy who wrote The Hunchback of Notre Dame. It's called The Man Who Laughs. And it's it's basically the main character is the basis for the Joker from Batman. That character in the book, see, Victor Hugo incorporated a lot of historical fact into his stories. And there's this group called the Comprachicos, which basically meant child buyers. And these people would kidnap or abduct or be sold children by poor villagers and would purposely deform them, like in the ways that, you know, you have like Chinese foot binding. We have the, you know, the skulls that have been elongated, or the neck braids. Yeah. Or you can, you know how like the Japanese make square watermelons by putting a watermelon in a fucking square thing?
Deforming watermelons.
You could do that with a child by putting it in a weird vase thing. You could do all kinds of shit. There was all these, and because the reason for this was because the royals and the rich people, you know, this is like a form of entertainment to them. So this sort of plays into the whole like freaks and monsters thing, as well as like unwanted surgeries, etc. This is what happened to the main character in The Man Who Laughs. He had a grin carved into his face by a Comprachico. And there's other like, there's sort of like corresponding figures like this in other cultures as well, like the Bruja out of, I believe it's Argentina, in the Patagonia Mountains. These sorcerers would like come down and abduct a child and then like subject it to these weird, I guess, surgeries, for lack of a better term, and turn them into weird little familiar monsters and shit. But the term that's also, weird. I found out the term buffoon, you know, you like in the old medieval times, you had your jesters, your court jesters, etc. And the buffoon. A buffoon is apparently a sort of half man, half monkey. Like, these things were like made, created. And this whole history of these weird sort of monster makers, and like, you know, you could artificially create dwarves, shit like this. Like, it's just the
I'd like to welcome you to the Isle of Dr. Moreau.
Yeah, I'm about to get to that as well. That's why I didn't want to play all my H.G. Wells cards yet. But yeah, you have these fucked up motherfuckers who are like doing this and creating these deformed children specifically for entertainment purposes of the rich and powerful. There's many documented cases. I'll get to a few here, like, or at least if you're interested and want to look into it more. Oh yeah, and also back in the old and Greco-Roman times, they also used organs to predict the future and divine, you know, future events as well. They would cut out your liver or your lungs or your kidneys, etc. Depending on what it was they were trying to find out, they'd take out certain, you know, organs and read them and find the future. So I found
Tell me
also,
my love
like,
life.
Yeah.
Oh,
well, let me rip your heart out first. It's broken.
And your wiener.
And this also sort of plays into the whole idea of the mad doctor and just, you know, obviously the modern day fucked up examples are things like the concentration camps, human experimentation, Unit 731. The less said about all that, the better. But yeah, these Comprachicos would fucking create their bonsai children. And supposedly there were also things called baby farms back in the day. I kind of heard about these, and I didn't quite know what they were. I thought they were like orphanages, sort of. But these are like wholesale breeding factories, basically, where they just had women giving birth to babies. And this is sort of where the imagery and the semi-legend of Cabbage Patch Children comes from, because before it was a toy, that's where they got their name from. There was this whole weird, like, connection.
There's always a beginning story.
Yeah, it's like a weird folklorical thing that goes back. But yeah, the Comprachicos would make freaks, and it's weird to think also that surgical procedures are, you know, not necessarily a new thing. I found a story about a leg transplant that took place 1,500 years ago, and it's called The Miracle of the Moor's Leg. It's about a guy who got his leg chopped off, and then they chopped the leg off of a dead Ethiopian dude, and then sewed it onto this dude. And they said it's a miracle because it actually took, because most transplant surgeries and shit like that we do today, you have to have like tons of immunodepressive drugs and shit. But they also think that they had some kind of equivalent back then that may have not worked all the time, but did provide some kind of, you know.
Fun fact, cats are universal donors and receivers. You can take any organ out of a cat that isn't essential for function. Yeah. As long as you can keep the body alive, you can transplant any organ out of one cat to another.
Weird.
Yeah, because it'll take immediately.
Oh, and that reminded me of the Soviet two-headed dog experiments and
and the ape.
Yeah,
monkey head.
We don't have any video confirmation of those like we do with the dog experiments, which is, I don't know, as gruesome as those dog experiments are, that's probably a good thing that we're not having to watch
Soviet science.
Sasquatch.
Not because we can, but maybe we should.
Because we're fucking crazy.
Because we're batshit crazy. This will help us win the gap in a two-headed dog race. Yeah. Fucking assholes.
The secrets of the universe are implicit. That reminds me of the story my friend told me. He's like, you know that during the space race, the Americans spent thousands of dollars on trying to create a pin that would write upside down? You know what the Soviets did? Used a pencil. Yeah. And I was like, fuck you, communists! And then I hit him and threw him out the window and ate a Snickers and drank a Coke. Anyways, that didn't really happen, the last part.
The back part didn't happen.
I would never eat a Snickers. No, but yeah, early medicine, I mean, we all know it's fucked up. Like, you know, like we mentioned earlier, there was the stealing of bodies from graves to discover anatomy, you know, and what's extra fucked up is that you had those weird, you know, surgical performing theaters where other people have to gather around and watch a body be chopped up because it's
and drop candy in the body on accident.
It's the only fucking way, you know?
Yeah.
The red thing's connected to my wristwatch. Oh, shit. Yeah. Vivisections, specifically, is surgery that is performed on a living being. And when it's been around forever. When you mix a lot of these early medicine ideas with alchemy as well, some people think that there may be a bit more reality to some of the chimera creatures that we see in folklore. Like, people think that it's a possibility that, people chopped off a goat head and put it on a lion's body and shit like that. I mean, it depends on the drugs that they had or the chemicals. I mean, I know it's the most far-fetched, nonsensical, fantastical thing, but in retrospect of looking at a lot of this shit, I kind of don't entirely throw out the possibility. And then as far as like medical horrors go, which is the whole avenue I was taken down by Conrad Dippel. Thanks, buddy. You also come to later have what we mentioned before, I think, galvanism, which was a study of the effects of electricity on the body. So they would run current through dead bodies. There's actually famous drawings and sort of graphs of this from back in the day, like late 1800s. Because this was around the same time that like mesmerism was becoming a thing, and they were electromagnetism and magnetism and the effects on the physiology of the human body. And they'd start running currents through dead bodies, and their faces would go like and fucking just
move around.
Yeah, and their legs would kick and shit, and it'd freak people the fuck out. From there, I traced that to a potential modern urban legend. I don't know if this is true. It's on a bunch of like fucking conspiracy theory icebergs. I mean, they're entertaining. Take them for what they are.
With a pinch of salt.
Yeah. But there's this shit called Mexican sugar dancing, which is supposedly done in weird private clubs where they have dead bodies that they run voltage through, and it's a form of entertainment. So, I mean, that's gotta be fucking urban legend. That's, I don't know. That's too cinematic of a it's too on the nose Frankenstein-y. But getting back to H.G. Wells and the Island of Dr. Moreau, there is actually, I believe it's chapter 14 in the Island of Dr. Moreau. I know the chapter is called The Doctor Explains, or something to that effect.
I'd like you to meet my daughter. She's a very fine young lady. She has a tail.
She did look good in that movie.
As a cat person?
Yeah. She wasn't that much catified. That little fucking pink dude, however, I don't think that was Mini-Me. I think that was another actor, but still, like...
Oh, Catwoman.
It's just... Ugh.
Come look at this little pink man that I got follow me around and when I'm gonna deliver those 5,000 Big Macs to my island.
I love the smell of napalm and cooking oil
I
on
just
the
love to
wine.
pinch his little cheeks. I want to put him in a pie and eat him. He's just a cute little bastard. I love him.
Yeah, that weird little pink man fucking was freaky as shit.
And they aired that on TV.
Yeah. Well, there's a whole fucking story behind that movie and how long it took because, Marlon Brando was being such a fucking prima donna the whole time, and just it was beset by all types of fucking production problems. Anywho,
I saw I want a brown M&M's on there. What the fuck, guys?
I want pink M&M's only. Where is a pink M&M's?
They don't make those, Marlon.
I tell you about calling Marlon. He's fucking stupid.
You better call.
I gotta go to the set and be on another movie for the Mr. Belvedere movie. Get your stupid kid your sandwich.
Anyway, okay, that's
for Mrs. Prissy Polly Pants.
Oh, yeah, because that's what I really want to do is make a sandwich for Prissy Polly Pants. Oh, God.
Hold on, let me get these cotton balls out of my mouth.
At least some not Orson Welles.
Yeah, chapter 14 of Dr. Moreau, written by H.G. Wells. Once again, the doctor goes into this whole diatribe and explains why he does what he does. And what he does is performed vivisections on animals in order to make them more human. There's an ongoing sort of theme through the book. It's like when the guy first gets on the island, he's like, well, these humans that he turned into these things, these monsters, or what the fuck's going on? He's like, no, these were animals that I helped evolve to a higher state. And he fed them, the sayer of the law. And there's a whole other chapter about mind control and the use of religion and social programs to sort of keep them occupied so they don't revert to their bestial selves, which is highly, it's very H.G. Wells, very, like, okay, bring it down a notch, buddy. But the whole...
Mr. High and Mighty H.G. Wells in his ivory tower.
Yeah.
Oh, H.G. Wells, look at my mustache, spin in a circle.
He's going through his whole diatribe about vivisections and etc., and he offers up numerous real-life applications of how this has been done before, of how weird surgical experimentation has been done before, because he constantly keeps coming back to this idea of the limits of the plasticity of the human body and what all can be done to it and with it. And some of the, like, there are verifiable examples that he fucking puts forth, several of them, like, throughout his whole little speech. And he also refers to a paper, which I believe is also titled The Limits of Plasticity in the Human Body, which was written and published in a periodical in 18-something, around the time that H.G. Wells was alive, and quite possibly even written by fucking H.G. Wells himself. So it's a weird, like, self-referential thing. But H.G. Wells did take biology.
Cross-promotion.
He did, you know, he studied biology and medicine, to a degree, I think. Biology, definitely, at a prestigious university. And he mentions it in the book as well, as the character. The character says that he studied at this university under this particular professor, etc.
You're right what you know, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there are all these allusions or outright fucking references to all the fucking weird potentialities of surgeries and fucking monstrosities being made. There's a sort of prevalent, I don't know, I don't like to feed into the whole... There's certain things mentioned in Dr. Moreau's diatribe as well that I'm very hesitant to mention as well, because they could be used to justify certain stupid conspiracy theories. But for the sake of, you know, transparency, he does also mention things like inoculations and injections of various sorts, and how even at that time, in the late 1800s when that was written, there were still, you know, chemical and medicinal solutions that could be used to straight up alter the DNA structure of certain animals, patients, human patients, etc., that could be applied and were mentioned as being applied in his experiments to create these beastmen, etc. So, I don't know, man. It's a whole fucking, like, crazy, like, underlying current of not necessarily...
No pun intended.
Yeah, not necessarily secret history, but disgusting fucking weird history that if you look for it, it's there. Mostly, when I tried to look more into the Comprachicos, I've tried to find more on these fucking characters before, and unfortunately, a lot of it comes back to Ayn Rand, who, whatever.
The scourge of every high school student.
Yeah, because she wrote like an essay or something called The Comprachicos of the Mind, which is all about the educational system. But she's kind of using it in the same way, except just, you know, in a higher falutin metaphorical way of the psychological vivisection and surgery performed on the minds of children through the education system, blah, 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 which I don't necessarily agree or disagree with, but Ayn Rand is...
You know, one of the oldest recorded surgeries that they're aware of, they thought was fiction, probably still is, in the Iliad. A lot of scholars have theorized that Homer at one point was probably a surgeon because the amount of information he knew on the human body was so accurate, and the way they had to fix things.
There are literally thousands of ancient Greek medicinal and medical manuscripts that have yet to be translated that are so full of crazy fucking information. This is why, like, I hear occasionally about, like, the ancient biopharmaceutical harvesting stuff I've kind of alluded to once or twice before on this show, of how they, you know, the only place you could get certain chemicals was from a human body, because that's the only place they knew where to get it. So, like, if you go if there's a dead gladiator and you're a witch or a mendicant or whatever, you're practicing medicine or
tanning hides because you're a leather tanner.
You run down there to the dead fucking gladiator and you rip his kidney out and you lick on it because there's all kinds of fucking adrenal gland secretions or whatever, things like that. And then they could use it in various potions and medicines, etc.
They've actually found Roman corpses, well, skeletons that have grafts in the skulls. They smelted something because they delted something, and they put it in there, and like the skin,
like a
grew
plate
back
in
over.
their head, kind of.
Yeah.
You know that metal plate in my head? I had to have it replaced because every time Catherine revved up the microwave, I'd piss my pants and forget who I was for a half hour or so.
Even like the removal of digits and the replacement, like what do they call it?
Prosthetics?
Yeah. They have prosthetics and stuff that, I mean, they were crude, but they were effective. And even the way the firearms worked, it was better to cut a limb off than to try to save it because, no antibiotics.
Yeah, gangrene, etc.
Yeah, it's just easier. Life on a ship is pretty terrible to begin with, and then you add onto that disease. So we got to cut your leg off, bud. Sorry.
Yeah, there's and then, of course, I mean, you can kind of extrapolate the whole idea of intentional surgical experimental deformation, even just the deformation. Like, the whole idea of human experimentation is obviously quite fucking abhorrent.
Off-putting, for sure.
But for the purposes of specifically deforming another human being for entertainment purposes, for the rich and powerful, is so incredibly fucked up that it's nightmarish, dude. And
but you're saying that there's actually a historical precedent set for this conspiracy theory that exists today about...
Well, no, it's not a conspiracy theory. The Comprachicos thing, that's very real. They were very real. That existed. I'm proposing that maybe that trend could go back farther than we think, because the Comprachicos, this is around, medieval times. I'm proposing it could possibly go back to Greco-Roman times and like early prodigiums and freak shows, quote unquote. I know we're not supposed to use that phrase anymore.
That's what it was called.
Yeah, but freak shows go way back, dude. Deformed people, quote unquote, unfortunately, have always been a sort of, I don't know, shittier part of humanity's potentiality for entertainment, more or less, It's only just in the last, 50 years that we don't have, quote unquote, freak shows that have, Lobster Boy, Dogface Boy, things like that. The only thing I can think of is the Jim Rose freak show, and that's like Blockheads and the Human Enigma, the guy with all the puzzles and shit. They're like self-made weirdos.
Or like the guy that nails
that's a human blockhead.
Okay, yeah. And then the dude that swallows the sword.
Yeah.
And all that.
Fire eaters and contortionists.
Yeah, and that one guy, I may be confusing this, but the one guy that put a bottle rocket in his butt.
That sounds like something a human blockhead would do.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all sort of turned into like modern day, and this is for the best, obviously. But it's all, self-made weirdos and self-made freaks.
Consenting.
It's people who aren't being exploited. It's not John Merrick, the Elephant Man, having to scream, "I am not an animal, I am a human being." There's one other weird sort of fear of doctors thing that I sort of came across.
White coat syndrome?
Well, sort of. It could be related to that. It's ironic that it's white because this has to do with Ku Klux Klan members and the turn of the century Deep South. There was these legends or folk tales of what were called night doctors. And the black folks, the black community in the South, were fucking terrified of these motherfuckers because they weren't just Klansmen, because a doctor, obviously, could be in the Klan. All the well-to-do white men. So they had these extra special Klan-related boogeymen called night doctors that were like the super fucking freaky boogeymen because they would come and who knows what, inject you with something or fucking perform a fucked up surgery on you. So this whole idea of like the medical boogeyman has been around forever. I mean, and it comes and goes and takes different forms. I mean, just look at what we went through in 2020 and how people got certain ideas about certain things, etc. It's nothing new. It's a reoccurring theme. There are people that sort of take this and run with it. This whole idea of surgical deformity or alteration, and today it's called body modification. And people are into it, whatever, if that's what you like. One of the weirder ones is known as trepanation. I'm sure you've heard of this before.
Nope.
It's when you drill a hole into your skull in order to release the pressure of the blood-brain barrier, and it's supposed to make you fucking super high, like all the time, bro. And
that's weird.
This is a practice that's been around a while.
It used to release the demons. Now it's just for recreation.
Yeah, people do it now to be fucking basically stoned all the time. There's a movie or a short film. God damn it, I don't have the name of it handy. I think it was like A Hole in the Head or something like that. But
or that episode of X-Files Unruh.
That was in X-Files. That's right.
Yeah, with the sheetrock pick that goes in the frontal lobotomy area.
Yep. Yeah. That fucking lobotomy doctor, man. That's another fucking boogeyman doctor from fucking history. That guy performed like a fucking 230 lobotomies or some shit.
Little known fact. My father-in-law, God rest his soul, used to help electroshock therapy in the insane asylum back in the day when he got out of the army.
This is what I'm talking about with like barbaric medicinal practices, man.
Yeah, because that shit doesn't work.
Fuck no, it makes shit worse, man.
Yeah.
I met someone who's undergone fairly extensive electroconvulsive therapy before in their life, and they were I'm going to say this like badly, but like they were very like, oh, look what I met. They were just very. I'm trying really hard not to use
it. Probably took the fire out of them, I'm sure, man.
Yeah,
like anything. I mean, dude, it's trauma.
It's it's fucked up because to get to where we need to go with medicine, some of this shit had to happen. Like we wouldn't be where we are. We wouldn't know the things that we know without the fucked up things happening. But yeah, trepanation. Oh yeah, there's a movie or a short film called Hole in the Head where you can actually watch a woman perform the trepanation procedure on herself. It's because it's supposed to make you like super high, like the highest ever.
We at the Kooks Cranks and Iconoclast podcast do not endorse the insane surgery of trepidation.
I got enough holes in my body.
Yeah, like Tony Clifton said.
I don't like them either. Most of them.
Sometimes they get me in trouble.
Yeah. This one back here, it's just a smelly, hairy liability. That's all it is.
I hear you.
The last thing, and this sort of next to last and bleeds into last, I wanted to talk about a little something that has to do with the combination of alchemy, as we were discussing earlier, and the concept of artificial life forms. Maybe you heard me mention it quickly earlier. The homunculus. The homunculus, for those who don't know, it's a little bitty artificial man created through alchemical means. And I happen to have the instructions.
Oh, I thought you had one here.
No. Right here in my pants pocket. Come on out, Tiny Tim. Say hello.
In me pocket.
What's up, motherfuckers?
No, I actually happen to have the instructions right here for how to create your own homunculus. When the word homunculus first came around, it was also sort of interchangeable with things like mandrake roots or little wax mannequins used by witches as like voodoo dolls, because anything that sort of like looked like a little person, and both of those things are very incorporated into like magic and the occult and shit. The whole mandrake root story, like they grow underneath a dead hanged man, and when you die, you bust your last nut, and it's supposed to like go into the ground, and that's where the plant grows.
Or
all these weird fucking
the
old
shit demon
tales
from Dogma.
Yeah, it's comparable.
Kinda.
Yeah, except this one's a little like spud potato root man. But so how to make a homunculus, and this is in the old timey language, so I apologize, but I think it translates fairly easily across the board. Let the sperm of a man by itself be putrefied in a gourd glass, sealed up with the highest degree of putrefaction in horse dung for the space of 40 days, or so long until it begins to be alive. move, and stir, which may easily be seen. After the time, it will be something like a man, yet transparent and without a body. Now after this, if it be every day warily and prudently nourished and fed with the arcanum of man's blood, and be for the space of 40 weeks kept in constant, equal heat of horse shit, it will become thus a living infant, having all the members of an infant, which is born of a woman, but it will be far less. This we call homunculus, or artificial man, and this is afterwards to be brought up with as great care and diligence as any other infant, until it come to riper years of understanding. Now, this is one of the greatest secrets that God ever made known to man, sinful mortal man. For this is a miracle. This is the greatest secret that God ever imparted to man. It's to jerk off into a earthenware vessel and throw it in a pile of horse shit for 40 weeks. Sorry, I was just editorializing.
It's all right. That makes total sense.
Yeah. And one of the great wonders of God, and secret above all secrets, and deservedly it ought to be kept amongst the secrets until last times, when nothing shall be hid, but all things are made manifest. Like right the fuck now, as I have apparently spilled the beans and given away the secret formula for how to create a homunculus. Also, apparently, I can only find a single source for this, but if you switch semen, as I said, come into play later in this. If you switch the semen with menses and do the same procedure, instead of a homunculus, you will get a basilisk.
Basilisk?
Yeah. Have you ever heard of those before? It's basically like a weird lizard chicken that its stare can kill you or freeze you or turn you to stone.
Well, that's probably not good.
Yeah. Kind of hard to, pat down what the fuck's going on. Yeah, if there's all kinds of weird homunculus-related alchemical symbolism in tons of very famous works of art. If you want to check out some of the various alchemical and sort of Catholic Church mysteries, which are sort of intertwined in a lot of this, medieval to Middle Ages art, various famous works of art, check out the works of one Jan van Eyck, especially a particular painting called the Arnolfini portrait. The many demonic hellscapes of Hieronymus Bosch, those are filled with all kinds of weird fucking symbolism. And then you have a fella by the name of Michael Pascher, who did a painting called The Devil Presenting St. Augustine with the Book of Vices, which also has lots of crazy symbolism sort of hidden and scattered throughout. Here's a little hint. When you look at the Arnolfini portrait, it's very famous for its use of advanced perspective at the time of when it was painted. So there's a mirror smack dab in the center of the back wall. There's two characters in the foreground, and there's a mirror on the back wall. Try to look close up into the mirror, and you'll notice some very strange differences and weird shit going on. And all of this sort of, this is sort of played into, modern ideas of cloning. And of course, right around the corner from all this, the modern equivalent, today we've got transhumanism and biopunk and things like this. So it's sort of an alchemical resurgence of sorts as far as the effects of the human body, the plasticity of the human body modification culture as a tattoos even count, I mean, it's your bonsai body. You're just fucking trimming it up. So, but yeah, this whole Frankenstein thing, man, it just led me to some weird fucking places.
What the weirdest part is out of all this, we barely covered the story of Frankenstein itself. Victor von Frankenstein making a
but I mean,
body.
Most people know that story, I mean, it's not like we had to cover the Texas Chainsaw Massacre story. I think it's pretty self-evident what goes on with the Frankenstein story. I will say, damn, I wish I knew the name of the movie. They made a movie about the whole weird little writer's retreat weekend with Mary Shelley and Percy Shelley and Lord Byron.
I vaguely remember that.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of it. There's a comic book called Frankenstein's Womb, which is also sort of a pseudo-fictional take on that as well. And I have a couple book recommendations if anybody out there wants to sort of look into this fucking weird shit like anymore. There's Transhumanism, a grimoire of alchemical agendas written by Dr. Farrell and Dr. DeHart. Artificial Man, Alchemy, Transubstantiation, and the Homunculus, written by Mary Bain Campbell. Beasts, Humans, and Transhumans in the Middle Ages and the Renaissance. Anatomical Anomalies. You know what? Don't look at that book, actually. Just do yourself a favor.
At your own peril.
Avoid that one. In Search of Frankenstein by Radu Florescu. There's a YouTube channel called Mind Unveiled, which has a lot of the weird theoretical stuff on this. The Man Who Laughs by Victor Hugo. And The Island of Dr. Moreau, most definitely by H.G. Wells. Or most definitely check out chapter 14 of that book because it lays out the whole sort of weird experimental prehistory with actual noted cases of just weird experimental surgeries and vivisections done back in those days, man. Just lots of this could be related to something else we could do later, but there was a famous Catholic, I guess, saint, or I don't know if he was sainted, but he was a very, very important figure in Catholicism by the name of Roger Bacon. He was basically like the Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic super scientist of the Catholic Church back in the day. And he supposedly he went by the moniker of Dr. Mirabilis, which means like Dr. Miracle or Dr. Marvel. So he basically is a fucking superhero of like ye olden medieval times and shit. But he supposedly was fucking around with early forms of automatons and robots and sort of AI computers and shit like that, like we kind of talked about with Raymond Lull when we mentioned earlier offhand. Because there are legends of this dude as well. He created some sort of what they called a quote-unquote brazen head, which is also what the Templars were accused of fucking around with. But the one the Templars were supposed to be messing with was like a necromantic, like resurrected dead meat kind of thing, or like a weird fleshy monster thing. Whereas this is like an actual automaton, like created technology, supposedly. And he could ask it questions and it could answer yes or no. And it sort of acted as a magic 8-ball / early computer for fucking Roger Bacon.
For yes, 1 knock for no.
Yeah. Extra bacon. But yeah, and then, you know, later on you have the whole idea of medical horrors, man. There's no fucking stop to it. Jesus, those books on teratomas and just... And you got eugenics and human experimentation and just all the fucking horrible shit. But yeah, man, artificial life forms, dude. Fucking Frankenstein, the Golem, AI, mimetic entities, homunculoids. Fucking weird shit, dude.
Yeah. Everybody's got fingers in pies that are going to eventually... the science will catch up to a lot of it, I'm sure. I mean, you can technically make a person in a plate now.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, we have transgenic. Transgenic is when you can take, basically you take one genetic property of one species and insert it into another.
So like mixing the healing properties of a salamander with a human?
Sort of, yeah. Except that the real ones are like, they've taken, you know, bioluminescence and put it into monkeys.
That's fucking weird.
Yeah.
Or, so their asses glow at night?
No, their fur. Well, actually... I haven't seen the video of it in a long time. I think it was like their whole fur body, everything. But that would be funny weird. If a big red baboon ass was like, come get it, lights on.
The red light district.
Yeah, but no, there's other beings like that, or, you know, creatures like that. Like they've taken, they took something with spider web and mixed it with something else to make it extra strong. I mean, they've done all kinds of genetic experiments with animals now, and they, you know, They can even grow human organs inside pigs now for transplant. And
yeah, it used to be they took the bowels of pig hearts to replace into humans, but they didn't last very long. So now you have an artificial valve that they had to engineer.
Because your body could reject it and shit. But and supposedly all these immunosuppressant drugs to help the body help graft it into its system now, they've gotten a lot better in the last fucking couple thousand years. Growing ears on mice. I know I've seen that.
Yeah, I've seen that one too. Speaking of which, there was an arrest in Florida. Let's count the red flags.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. You want to play count the red flags?
Sure.
Okay.
Is it fucking Tiananmen Square up in here?
So, pretty close. So, this dude in Florida.
Well, that's your first red flag.
Yeah. Dude in Florida gets, the cops show up at his house.
Okay.
He's on the back of his pickup truck.
That's red flag number 2, probably.
And his gym shorts and his wife beater. I think that's not the right word anymore. What do they call it?
It's Florida.
Yeah.
Red flag number 3.
And then they said, does somebody here call 911? He's like, yeah, I did. Okay. What's going on? My grandpa's dead. Okay. He's over there. I got, well, sir, do you mind if we search you real quick? We want to just talk to you and make sure you don't have anything on you. Oh, yeah, sure. And he jumps up off the truck. He's like, here you go. You're probably going to want these. The fuck? Are those ears? Oh! Gross. He had both his grandpa's ears in his hands.
Well, that's certainly a red flag as well, I think.
Yeah. And then they sit him down and they're talking to him and they're telling him, all right, man, you're under arrest. You already know why.
So wait, did they look at the body and then they said you're under arrest?
They had an officer inspect the corpse there, and yes, he was missing his ears.
Okay.
He'd been mutilated, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And then they say, hey, no, don't do that. Don't lunge. That's not good for you. And, well, he did it again.
Yeah, okay. Here's another red flag.
And then 3 Florida officers commenced with...
Fucking lit him up like Christmas.
Man, they fucking whooped that ass. Less than lethal on him.
Oh, well, that's a delightful change.
Yeah. They got him in
it's
the
not
custody.
the videos I usually see.
Yeah. I don't want to say it's the worst part, but like they were buds and he was fucked up on something. And
I got my theory of what that probably is.
When they went to search the house for more evidence, because you need all the evidence you can get to make a watertight case against something like this.
Yeah, make sure you get a conviction.
At his hearing, no pun intended. The police officers found an apron that said "The Family Butcher" on it, covered in human blood.
Yeah, there's another.
We're not a crime channel. I just wanted to share that because I thought it was fucked up.
I saw a video recently of a guy who got stopped. It was a young kid, a teenager actually, and I think he was just high on drugs. He tried to run from the cop, and the cop tagged him in the fucking arm. He's like, "Stop running!" The kid's just running across the highway, or he runs from the car across a field, and the cop is chasing him. He's like, "Fucking stop or I'll shoot." So the cop tags him in the arm just as soon as the kid is making it to another freeway. And right when he gets tagged in the arm, he falls into the other highway and gets fucking hit by a car.
Jesus.
Yeah. And the end.
For him.
Yeah.
For sure. Man.
Yeah. I think the cop got in trouble too, but it was like, well, fuck, dude. I mean, you told him to stop.
Well.
If they hadn't done what I told them not to do, they'd still be alive.
Yeah, there's a law from a case. If it's in pursuit of an act of crime, especially a felony, and they pose a threat to the officer or the public in general, they can fire even if they're running away from them. But generally speaking, it's frowned upon.
Dude, there's another. I just love true crime.
These are generalities.
Yeah.
I'm not, by no means am I illegal or paralegal. I'm just. I think it's Garner versus Tennessee is the law that they use to cite like why they did what they do.
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, it's fucking terrible. If you're caught, you're caught, man. Just, dude, fight it in court. Don't fight it there because those cops are going to win. There's a whole lot more of them than you.
Oh, yeah. And they're, they're part of the system. And I mean,
their utility belt is a lot better.
I get that policemen are like dudes just trying to do a job, but at the same time, the chances of them being able to do whatever it is they want to do. I mean, I'm not saying they're all, fucking crooked or anything, but, we have precedents.
The thing about corruption is someone has to find out and actually do something about it. Otherwise, it continues. But
dude, that whole story. Okay, yeah, I know we always say we're not a crime podcast, but god damn it, I love true crime. Do you know the case of the two boys on the railroad in Arkansas
that are devils or devil worshippers? That one?
No.
Oh,
far from it. Actually, these two kids are out like fishing or hunting late at night,
doing stuff outside.
Yeah, 16, like a 16 and a 17-year-old kid. They're just good old boys, never meaning no harm. Beats all you never saw. Ended up in trouble with the law
since the day they was born.
No, since that night that they were out either fishing or hunting at 2:30 or 3 in the morning. But you live out in the boonies and fucking you're a teenager. You're gonna do what you gotta do.
Not a whole lot going on.
Yeah, you're gonna entertain yourself. So these two kids, they're out doing what they're doing, and they run afoul of allegedly. I have to say all this because some of it is still
pending.
Yeah, and this happened like in the early 90s. They run afoul of a drug deal. This is the overarching most likely scenario. And at this drug deal are 1 to 3 police officers overseeing the drug deal, as well as a alleged former WWF wrestler. I could be thinking of a different case, but I think there was a wrestler / like sort of like Dixie Mafia like enforcer dude or whatever. But also the fact that this is in Arkansas in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, and the people who were in charge running things over there.
We won't name names.
Yeah, they have been tangentially implicated in what happened to these two boys. They were found shredded to bits across a railroad line, and the really fucking infuriating thing about this story, from what I've heard, is that the state of Arkansas paid to have a extra special consultant coroner come in, medical examiner, and examine the bodies or, well, what you have left of these two boys. This motherfucker turns around and tries to say that these two boys smoked so much marijuana that they just fucking fell asleep on the train tracks. And it's the most asinine, stupid shit, especially late 80s, early 90s weed. Ain't gonna fucking happen. I don't care how much of a fucking lightweight you are. But yeah, he tried to say that their systems were full of marijuana, and then there was pushback on the findings on the medical report, and they were like, well, no, that's probably not.
Well, I'll tell you what happened there. They had a bunch of jazz cigarettes inside them, and they decided it'd be a good time to go take a nap wherever they felt good enough to go, do that.
Yeah, no, they made the guy like redo, or no, okay, it was the kid's parents who disputed the claim. They were like, no, our kids don't do drugs, so you're fucking lying, or you're just really shitty at your job. And this coroner guy, he was. The story just makes it sound like he's such a fucking obvious ringer that was brought in for a very specific purpose. And he stood by his fucking stupid claim over and over and over. And apparently there was evidence that they'd obviously been dead before the train hit them. And he had some fucking shitty, highfalutin, stupid excuse for that as well. So everyone was like, this guy doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about.
Well, I mean, the body's a mysterious thing, Like, there's stuff that they haven't taught us in medical examiner school yet.
Did you know there's 2 sphincters in a body? One at the top, one at the bottom. Yeah, so they're like, get this fucking guy out of here. And then they had like a competent / non-corrupt medical examiner look at it and was like, yeah, this is all kinds of fishy and fucked up. And I remember seeing this case a long time ago as a kid on Unsolved Mysteries, and one of the detectives, quote unquote, or whatever he was, I don't know his rank or whatever, investigator, who was like involved with the case, he more or less was on Unsolved Mysteries saying like, we think that this has connections that go pretty high. And he said it straight to the camera, which I think is also, I don't know. It's a fucked up story, man. And it's still, they did end up arresting the fucking police officers who were supposedly at this drug deal, but there are still lingering accusations, I guess.
Questions.
Questions that need to be answered. It's a
perhaps
fucked up case,
an
man.
unsolved mystery.
Yeah. Oh wait, no, that's the Fletch theme.
Excuse me.
Solution number 2. He's hanging by his neck in a fucking closet.
Next up, the mystery of Coop's luggage. Where did it go? Where could it be? God damn it, that was hilarious. I miss that guy being around.
Yeah. Robert Stack? He's
Yeah.
great. Well, yeah, that's, I don't know. I know that we had some, like, heavier subject material on our last show, and I was trying to keep, I mean, I guess this one is a little more conceptually. We went to some conceptual places that are a little heavy. It wasn't as graphic, but, this is, once again, this is Horrorween, Halloween, and we're trying to fucking keep it spooky and weird and crazy and fucked up. So you got 2 more months, and it's escalating. Trust me. The next 2 weeks, man.
I am really not looking forward to Santa coming back.
Yeah, we've got, I don't know. We've already kind of alluded to, I kind of accidentally spilled the beans on a person coming up an episode or 2 back. I know I mentioned them offhand once or twice. That is someone that will be coming up soon. But before that episode, something that we sort of touched on today. I don't know if you were listening, you probably got it, but I don't want to, once again, give it all away. But let's just say, man is not entirely free of his animal nature. So that's your hint for next week's episode. And the monster that we'll be covering. Monsters. Don't want the monsters. Monsters. It'll sound better with Paul Anka singing it. Anyways, so yeah, thanks for tuning in.
That's so weird that... Okay, Paul Anka. Jesus Christ.
Thanks for tuning in, folks. If you want to get a hold of us, please do at Kooks, Cranks, and Iconoclasts at gmail.com. All one word. Is there anything else?
Special thanks to anyone that let me interview them and anyone that let Ron interview him.
Oh, man.
Because you'll be hearing that soon. And also, we're recording this on the 16th of October. So happy birthday, Hatchet, if you get a hold of this. I didn't forget.
Hatchet face. Wah, 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 wah. Yeah, we'll be back next week with another monster. This one will be... It'll be a hard listen in a few places. I'm just giving you all a heads up now.
It'll be a crack of a good time.
Yeah, so when we get a little darker like that, as you noticed with the episode before this and probably throughout this episode to a degree, I like to throw in a few audio decorations to sort of alleviate the mood a little bit, keep things light. So you'll hear that as well. I kind of want to give a little bit of a hint, maybe just to get you guys something a little bit jazzed to look forward to. We've already mentioned that we will be doing a JFK episode roughly around Thanksgiving. We've also got a Christmas special in the works. It's entirely unrelated to Christmas, but it is our interpretation of it. It will be the Kooks, Cranks, and Iconoclast Christmas special. Like that's basically what I would call it.
With all your favorite guests.
Yeah, we're going to be covering one of literally the biggest legends in a manner. It's a little different, a little experimental, something you might be familiar with, but you've never heard us do. And I'm really looking forward to it. We just have to sit down and write the goddamn thing.
Yep.
We'll get there. I got a good chunk of it already that I've planned out. So yeah, thanks for listening. Thanks for coming back. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for being a friend. Traveled back and down up the road again. Lance. We will
rest in peace, Suzanne Summers.
What?
Yeah.
I mean, I know she was in the spring chicken, but okay. We'll see you next week. Thanks for tuning in. This has been the Kook Springs Podcast. I'm Mike.
I'm Matt.
Hey, we'll see you next time. Woo!